Chapter 60, Why don't I just join you? Peerage? Yukino felt uneasy, a nagging sense that something wasn't quite right. She quickly spoke up. Well, since the commission is over, Uegahama and I will be leaving first. Lowering her head slightly, she avoided making eye contact with Lynn. Then, grabbing the still confused Yui, she hurried out of the old school building. She had a strong feeling that if she stayed any longer, she'd get caught up in something she shouldn't. What happened today was already too much. Her entire worldview had been shattered. She even began to question her own beliefs. She needed time to process everything. Old school building. Ah, they left. Yuta blinked in mild surprise. Master, are they unqualified? But they're clearly beautiful girls? Yes. This was the rule Yuta had come to understand. Generally speaking, if someone was a beautiful girl, they were automatically qualified to become part of Lin's family. And both Yukino and Yui were definitely beautiful girls. Lin shrugged. Obviously, they're qualified. As expected. Yuta's eyes flashed with understanding, but then she frowned in confusion. Then why? Why let them go? Lin suddenly chuckled. Yuta, you're looking at it the wrong way. It's not about whether I need them, it's about whether they need me. Yuta was momentarily stunned. Then, she smiled. That's true. They don't realize what an opportunity they've just passed up. Lin didn't dwell on Yukino and the others leaving. Instead, he turned his attention to Yuako. A ghost who had the potential to reincarnate as a devil. He was very interested. How about it? Want to come with me? Yuako's eyes lit up for a moment. But soon, the light faded. It was rare for her to meet someone who could actually see her. Of course, she wanted to follow Lin and leave this old school building. But I can't. Her voice was filled with gloom. I'm an earthbound spirit. I physically can't leave this place. Lin smiled. That's simple. Just become part of my peerage. Peerage? Yuako blinked in confusion. Lin had mentioned this before. But she had been interrupted before she could ask about it. Now, curiosity flickered in her eyes. Lin's lips curled into a slight smirk. Yes, reincarnate as a devil and become mine. As he spoke, Lin spread his devil wings. Yuako's eyes widened. Devils, you're serious? Lin shrugged. Of course. Yuako turned to look at Yuta and the others. And them. They're all my peerage members. In other words, they're devils, too. Yuta and the others exchanged glances. Then, they each unfolded their devil wings. Wow! Maiko, you look so cool. Hana's eyes sparkled with excitement. She reached out, wanting to touch the wings. Maiko's eye twitched. This girl, sometimes I really admire how shameless she can be. Meanwhile, Yuako's brain nearly short-circuited. As an old ghost, today had completely shattered her common sense. Devils are real. Her expression was complicated. Despite being a spirit for decades, she had little actual experience. She had spent most of her existence trapped in the old school building. She knew nothing about the world outside. Lin chuckled. If ghosts can exist, why can't devils? When you put it that way, it does make sense. Yuako nodded to herself. After all, when she was alive, she never imagined she'd turn into a ghost. And yet, here she was, having lived as one for 50 or 60 years. Becoming a devil, sounds kind of interesting. An intrigued look crossed Yuako's face. But then, her expression darkened. Is it really possible? Could she really leave this place? For decades, she had tried countless times, but always failed. Why not try and find out? Lin's tone was relaxed. A mere earthbound spirit wouldn't be able to resist the power of his evil piece. You're right. Yuako was momentarily dazed, then her eyes filled with determination. She decided. She would become a devil. Maybe then, she could finally leave. And even if she still couldn't, well, having a different kind of existence wouldn't be so bad either. A sly smile appeared in Yuako's narrow eyes. If I still can't leave the old school building after becoming your peerage member. She suddenly looked at Lin with a pitiful expression. Promise me you'll visit often, okay? You wouldn't leave your peerage member all alone, right? Don't worry. I won't leave you here alone. Yuako blinked. For a moment, she was touched. Then, I'll entrust my everything to you. She smiled playfully. Mr. Devil. Lin smirked. You won't regret it. But then, Yuako suddenly froze. Wait, is this even possible? I mean, I'm already dead, aren't I? Lin glanced at the glowing evil piece on his system panel. Then, he replied without hesitation. If I say yes, then it's fine. After all, if the evil piece says it's possible, then it's possible. Alright. Let's do this. Yuako pumped her fist in excitement. What do I do? Lin condensed an evil piece in his palm. But then, he paused, his gaze shifting toward Hannah. There was an outsider present. Although he had considered bringing her into his peerage as well. For now, she was still an outsider. Normally, people could witness a devil reincarnation ceremony. But his reincarnation process was special. At the end, he had to engrave a blessing. And that wasn't something outsiders could be allowed to see. Soon, Yuta and Maiko also realized the issue. Their gazes turned serious. Maiko sighed. Hannah, step aside for a bit. Hi. Hannah blinked, looking confused. Then, she suddenly pouted. Maiko, are you abandoning me again? Maiko. Why did that sound like I'm some kind of scumbag? Seeing that Hannah wasn't getting the hint, Maiko's expression turned serious. Hannah, this is a peerage matter. You. Then why don't I just join you? Maiko. To be continued. Then why don't I just join you? Inside the old school building, Hannah's voice rang loud and clear. Maiko blinked. Wait, was she serious? But. She wasn't sure if Hannah was qualified to become part of Lynn's peerage. Maiko turned to look at Lynn. Lynn met her gaze and smiled. Then join Yuako, he said casually. Reincarnate as a devil together and become part of my peerage. Maiko sighed in relief. So, Hannah is also qualified. Yay! Hannah hugged Maiko excitedly. Maiko smiled helplessly, but she was genuinely happy for her. Becoming part of Lynn's peerage is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for people like them. Besides, knowing the truth of the world but lacking the power to protect oneself. That's a nightmare. She had experienced it herself. Race, devil, ghost devil. Peerage, Lynn Valifor. Rank, low-class devil. Strength, I0. Agility, I0. Endurance, I0. Magic power, I0. Inherent skills. Ghost devil. Will-o'-the-wisp. Earthbound spirit, deploys an inherent barrier, Dusk Maiden's domain. Devil transformation, extreme ghost mode. Dash. Ding. Yuako has been reincarnated into your peerage. Ding. Your peerage member has become a special ghost devil. Ding. You have acquired the skill, Ghost Devil. Ding. Your strength has slightly increased. As expected, she reincarnated as a devil. Lynn was still a little surprised that Yuako had successfully completed her reincarnation. Although the evil piece had confirmed it long ago. Ghosts, after all, were beings without physical form. It felt like there were still hidden mechanics within the evil piece that even he hadn't fully explored. Ghost Devil. After reviewing the skill description, what caught his attention most was the Earthbound Spirit ability. Inherent Barrier. This was the first time Lynn had seen this type of ability. He tried to sense it himself. Then his expression turned a little strange. It was, the old school building. As for Will-o'-the-Wisp, it didn't seem particularly useful, though it did expand his toolkit. Additionally, he seemed to have gained a new state. One that was similar to Yuako's ghost state. Meaning, he could phase through walls now? Dash. On the other side, Yuako was still playing with her devil wings in disbelief. I really reincarnated. She muttered in awe. But then she looked at her body, confused. It still feels like I'm a ghost. Even after becoming a devil, her ghostly traits hadn't disappeared. Lynn handed her a copy of her blessings info. Just check your skills. It'll make sense. Yuako browsed through it. Skipping the currently irrelevant basic stats, her eyes landed on the title. Ghost Devil. She smirked. So I'm both a ghost and a devil now. That's about right, Lynn replied. Okay. Yuako accepted it quickly. Will-o'-the-wisp. She muttered to herself, could it be what I think it is? She closed her eyes and guided the power within her. Whoosh. A series of blue flames suddenly ignited in the air around her. Yuako laughed, her lips twitching slightly. Now I've got all the characteristics of a classic ghost. And the Earthbound Spirit skill. Was it symbolic of something? Still. The result was what mattered. At the very least. I don't feel any more connection to the old school building. Yuako looked stunned. That meant. She was no longer trapped. She could finally leave this cage she'd been bound to for decades. Well. Technically, it wasn't that she left the school building. The school building followed her. Lynn debated whether or not to tell her. Forget it. Let her figure it out on her own. Alright, next Hannah. Here. When her name was called, Hannah raised her hand excitedly, though there was nervousness in her expression too. She hadn't expected that reincarnating as a devil would require stripping. But she didn't want to be separated from Maiko. Her eyes firmed with resolve. She quickly removed her school uniform, leaving only her camisole. She hesitated. Should I put it on the front too? She whispered. Maiko's engraving had been on the front, right? She sneaked a glance at Yuako. But the front was too much. Even for someone as carefree as her, she was still a high school girl. Lynn noticed her hesitation. It's fine. Just show your back. Relieved, Hannah let out a breath. Then she turned around, loosened her back collar, and exposed her smooth back. Seeing this, Lynn placed the evil piece onto her skin. HNN. The cold sensation made her body twitch slightly. Buzz. Ding. Yurikawa Hannah has been added to your peerage. Ding. Your peerage member has reincarnated as a special devil, Life Devil. Ding. You have acquired the skill, Life Energy, Life Devil. Ding. Your overall power has increased slightly. The screen displayed Hannah's blessings. Dash. Yurikawa Hannah. Rank, Low Class Devil. Race, Devil. Peerage, Lynn Valafor. Strength, I0. Agility, I0. Durability, I0. Magic, I0. Inherent skills. Life Energy. Life Drain, absorbs life energy through eating. Accelerated stamina recovery. Life Devil. Regeneration, consumes life energy to heal. The greater the energy used, the stronger the effect. Life Flame, converts life energy into flames. Devil Transformation, Life Plunder Mode. Dash. The 9th peerage member, secured. And it was another specialized devil. Lynn focused on Hannah's skill set. Life Energy. Just like Maiko's yin-yang eyes, it was a rare talent with built-in abilities. That said, he'd already expected this. Hannah's immense vitality had stood out to him from the start. Next was Life Devil. After reading the skill description, Lynn's eyes gleamed. Regeneration. Now that was a rare one. He didn't have many healing-type abilities in his peerage. Healing by consuming life energy. Interesting. It seemed Life Devil and Life Energy were interconnected skills. That made them even more efficient. What was once just a source for grilling cursed spirits could now be used in other ways. And beyond that, Life Flame was particularly exciting. A power system independent of traditional magic. Though likely better suited for close combat. He'd have to find a good way to refine and upgrade it. Maybe borrow more coins. Or better yet, snatch them from Rias. Lynn rubbed his chin, eyes glinting. Wait. Didn't Natsuki have a human magician apprentice? Sasaki Misaki. He clicked his tongue. Getting anything out of Natsuki Minamiya was going to be tough. Better save that thought for later. Lynn saved Hannah's blessings info and handed her a copy. Hannah quickly got dressed and took a look. But then scratched her head. I don't get any of this. She looked at Maiko with teary eyes. Maiko, help me read this. Maiko gave her a helpless smile. Hannah, you really are clueless sometimes. But once she saw Hannah's blessings, her expression shifted. This fool is actually that strong. Dash. With the incident at the old school building wrapped up, Lynn brought Yuako and Hannah to the Supernatural Investigation Club. Yuako turned to glance at the old school building behind her, feeling a strange mix of nostalgia and disbelief. After all, she'd spent 60 years trapped in that place. Dash. Supernatural Investigation Club. Hannah was filling out her club application. Yuako shouted from the side, I want one too. Yuta gave her a side glance. Why would a ghost like you join the club? Ghosts don't have human rights now. Yuako puffed her cheeks. Lynn cut in before the bickering got worse. Alright, time to start club activities. Club activities. What are those? Hannah and Yuako looked at him, curious. Well, heading to another world to fight monsters and level up. Zombie world. After Hannah and Yuako stepped through the door, they were surprised. Is this really another world? They looked around. It didn't seem that different from the modern world. Lynn called Rei and asked her to guide them around the zombie world and have them fight a few zombies to test their abilities. As for Lynn, he was preparing to update the blessings of Yuta and the others. But where's Yuta? Yuta had secretly put her things away earlier and rushed back in a hurry. Lynn looked at her suspiciously. He had a strange feeling that Yuta was acting a little off today. Ever since they were at the Supernatural Investigation Club. Being stared at by Lynn, Yuta averted her eyes, her cheeks heating up. Tonight, she would become Lynn's woman. Her face grew even hotter at the thought. Alright, I'll update your blessing and check your stats. Earlier today, they worked together to take down a grade 1 cursed spirit. He had a feeling they'd grown quite a bit. Lynn's bedroom. You first, Yuta. Yuta nodded and casually removed her top. Having gone through this process several times, she was still a little shy, but she had gotten used to it. Lynn manually updated her blessing. Yuta felt Lynn's fingers brushing against her back, and she instinctively squeezed her thighs together. Dash. Kazuma Jayaka Yuta. Low-class devil. Race, devil. Master, Lynn Valafor. Strength, A823. Agility, A877. Durability, A827. Magic, S999. Inherent skills. Devil Tome, omitted. Dash. Lynn raised his eyebrows and copied her blessing info. He said, Yuta, your magic has already reached the limit, and the other stats are close too. Are you ready to upgrade? Without Psycho's yearning for killing, this was about the limit Yuta could reach. The build-up from before, plus today's grade 1 cursed spirit hunt, had pushed her right to the upgrade threshold. Yuta looked over her blessing information, realizing there wasn't much room left for growth. Aside from magic, the rest weren't her strong points. Then let's upgrade. Lynn continued the process. Yuta's blessing data refreshed. Dash. Kazuma Jayaka Yuta. Mid-class devil. Race, devil. Master, Lynn Valifor. Strength, I0. Agility, I0. Durability, I0. Magic, I0. Inherent skills. Devil Tome. Can record magic, mystical arts, and other abilities, then release them through the Devil Tome. The more detailed the information, the more complete the replication. Devil Transformation merges the body and the Devil Tome into one, allowing the user to wield all stored abilities. Accelerated magic growth. Development ability, Thunder Strike. Dash. There wasn't much change to the Archivist Devil's core abilities. The only new development was Thunder Strike, likely the result of her frequent use of lightning-based attacks. Yuta's level advancement didn't affect Lynn directly. The skill Evil Piece also showed no change. However, Lynn still received feedback from Yuta's level up. He now had access to the Thunder Strike development ability as well. Not bad. Better than nothing. Yuta reviewed her upgraded blessing information. Seeing her status as a mid-class devil, she smiled slightly. She whispered, finally. I've caught up with Psycho. In truth, she often felt a little pathetic. She was Lynn's first peerage member, yet she'd been surpassed in everything. Whether it was strength, or the pace of her relationship with Lynn. It was a total defeat. But tonight, things were finally different. While Lynn was updating Psycho's blessing, Yuta casually asked, Master, have you been going to Psycho's room every night lately? Lynn looked at her in surprise and said with curiosity, you didn't know. You're the one who stands outside the door eavesdropping every night. Yuta's beautiful eyes widened, and she stammered, what? That's. I didn't. I wouldn't. The more she spoke, the more flustered she became. I just remembered something I haven't done yet. I'll head out now. Yuta hurriedly got up from the bed, completely embarrassed. Lynn said flatly, put your clothes on first. Yuta paused, then obediently got dressed. Maiko and Mahiru exchanged glances, both noticing the strange atmosphere. Yuta-senpai, so this is what you're like. A little while later, Lynn also updated Maiko and Mahiru's blessings. Maiko's stats are close to the limit. She should be ready to upgrade in a few more days. Mahiru hasn't been in the peerage for long, so it's normal for her stats to still be low. Lynn patted Mahiru's head gently to comfort her. Feeling Lynn's warm hand on her head, Mahiru's face turned red. She then recalled the magic replenishment earlier today. She glanced at Lynn's lips involuntarily. Thin, soft. But since it happened in the middle of battle, she didn't feel like she'd really experienced it. Also, at the time, there were the scents of Yuta and Maiko too. Maybe, let's do it again. Master Lynn, Mahiru will work hard to level up. Mahiru's eyes shimmered slightly as she spoke with determination. Then she added in a whisper, after Mahiru levels up, could Master give Mahiru a little reward? Her face turned even redder as she said it. Who knows what she was imagining? Maiko's eyes widened in shock, staring at Mahiru. Mahiru, you're that bold? She always thought Mahiru was the gentle type, but she was actually so forward. Lynn pinched her soft cheek with a smile. Don't worry. Even if you don't level up, you can still ask me for a reward anytime. Lynn had always been generous with his peerage. Really? Mahiru's eyes lit up. Then she said shyly. Then, can I request magic replenishment? The first time. I didn't get to experience it fully. Lynn froze for a second. Mahiru was, surprisingly bold. Was that too much? Seeing Lynn not respond, Mahiru lowered her head in disappointment. She started getting anxious. Lynn pinched her cheek firmly, causing her to yelp in pain. Didn't you want a reward? Mahiru looked up in surprise, then leaned in closer. Yes, this scent, this warmth, it was Lynn's alone. Maiko watched silently, her expression complex. Shouldn't I be making a move too? If things keep going like this, there won't be any place for me in the peerage. Yuta-senpai, what are you doing? Weren't we the ones who joined first? After rewarding Mahiru, Lynn took the time to observe Hana and Yuako's performance. Take this. Hannah was clearly excited. Golden flames swirled around her fists as she smashed them down hard onto a zombie's head. Ah! She really seems suited for this ability. Lynn turned to look at Yuako. In the zombie world, her ghost state was highly advantageous. The zombies couldn't see her at all. They couldn't even hear her voice. They were nothing more than helpless prey in front of her. Looks like you two have adapted quickly. Ah! Master! Hannah noticed him and immediately ran over, clinging to Lynn's arm. This world is so much fun. It's just, She hesitated, her face flushing slightly. Then she murmured in a low voice, my stomach, it's kind of hungry. Hungry? Lynn examined her condition. Her life energy had been overly depleted. He began thinking of ways to replenish it. Food, maybe? If it's just food, could Shizuka's milk help? Rei, bring one of Shizuka's recovery items for Hannah. Yes, master. Soon, Rei returned with a bottle of Shizuka's milk. Lynn handed it to Hannah. Try it. Without hesitation, Hannah opened the can. Her eyes sparkled as she gulped it down. Wow! This milk is amazing. Hannah looked incredibly happy. She hadn't expected Lynn to have such top-quality milk. This was paradise. Rei, standing off to the side, wore a complicated expression. Forget it. Let her figure it out later. Lynn observed her closely after she finished drinking. Her life energy, which had shrunk into a tiny ball, suddenly reignited. Shizuka's milk was indeed effective. On the other side, seeing Lynn, Yuako floated over and draped herself onto him. She took a deep breath, inhaling Lynn's scent, and her gaze turned meaningful. They all smell like girls. Her master really was the king of harems. In such a short time, he'd already gotten along so well with the rest of the peerage. And they were all beautiful girls. She couldn't help but look forward to it. Would Lynn do something to her too? The loneliness she'd bottled up over the last 60 years was starting to stir. Evening. Maiko and Hannah left the zombie world together. Finally, I can go home with Maiko again. Hannah beamed. Seeing her so happy, Maiko couldn't help but smile. Hannah, how do you feel about joining the peerage? It's super fun. Hannah was brimming with enthusiasm. Everyone in the peerage is so nice, and the chief is really handsome. And the milk is really tasty. Milk? Maiko's smile froze for a second. That very questionable recovery item. If not absolutely necessary, she'd rather accept Lynn's magic replenishment instead. Just thinking about it made her heartbeat quicken. Then her thoughts naturally drifted to Mahiru's reward. She spaced out slightly. Everyone else was being so proactive. Whether it was Saiko, Mahiru. Even Utaa-senpai seemed to be planning something. Only her. Aside from replenishing magic, there hadn't been any real progress. And everyone in the peerage lived under the same roof with the master. Only she still went back to her own home. Oh. Now Hannah had joined too. Even though she just joined, Maiko knew. It was only a matter of time before Hannah was eaten by the master as well. Everyone in the peerage was a wing of the master. A luxury apartment. Yukino lay on her bed, her eyes slightly vacant. Just then, a cursed spirit crawled along the ceiling above her. Can you see me? Can you see me? Yukino's expression stiffened slightly as she tried not to react. But under the covers, her hands were clenched tightly. Yes. Even her house was filled with cursed spirits. She shifted her gaze naturally to her phone screen. A message appeared. Yui, Yukinon, I'm scared. Yukino paused. Yui's place must also be crawling with cursed spirits. She bit her lip, guilt welling up inside her. If only she hadn't dragged Yui into this. If she had just listened and not forced herself into the old school building, everything would have remained normal, right? All of this was her fault. She'd even dragged Yui down with her. Her eyes welled up with tears. She really was terrible. At the very least, she had to save Yui. She had to take responsibility. Should she ask the Supernatural Investigation Club for help? She blinked, dazed. First, maybe the shrine. Maybe there was still something she could do there. If not, then she'd turn to the Supernatural Investigation Club. After all, among the people she knew, only they could handle this kind of problem. Zombie world. Yutaa quietly snuck into Saiko's room. She let out a breath of relief after confirming Lynn wasn't there. Then she pulled a set of clothes out of her bag. A bunny girl outfit. A hint of shyness flickered in her eyes. This outfit was just too much, wasn't it? She lifted the bottom part and looked at it. It was empty. But still. Change. Gritting her teeth through the embarrassment, she put the outfit on. A chill brushed her lower half. HNNN. She groaned, then threw herself onto the bed. Her upper body was buried beneath the covers, while her lower half was exposed. The moment Lynn walked into the room, he'd be greeted with a pair of long, slender, black-stockinged legs, slightly parted and raised, with nothing underneath. She didn't believe Lynn could hold back. Half an hour later, Lynn was walking toward Psycho's room as usual when he was stopped by Takagi Yuriko, who had clearly been waiting. She gave him a charming, mature smile. "Lord Lynn, may I ask a favor? Could you come to Saya's room for a moment?" Lynn raised an eyebrow and followed her in. The moment he entered, he saw. Blushing, avoiding eye contact, completely naked, trembling slightly. Yuriko stood beside her with a calm smile, and began removing her clothes one by one. Then she knelt on the ground. "Please, Lord Lynn. This might be the only value I have left." Seeing this, Lynn didn't hesitate. Since she offered herself to him, how could he not accept? Lynn wrapped an arm around Yuriko's slender waist, effortlessly lifting her off the ground. Inside Psycho's room, Yuta, half dreaming, seemed to hear some strange noises. Under the blanket, she was starting to suffocate from lack of oxygen. To be continued. Junk Dog's note, completely skipped this CHP, just worked on it RQRN, sorry about that. The next day. Early in the morning. At the dining table, Yuta absent-mindedly poked at the food in her bowl, looking a little down. No appetite. She shot a resentful glance at Psycho. As if to say, "Why didn't Lynn go to your room last night?" Psycho smiled calmly. "Nothing I can do about it. No one can predict where Master wants to go." She recalled, "I remember one time, Master did not even come to this world at all." Yuta paused for a moment, then remembered it. And her mood sank even further. That day, Lynn had spent the whole night playing video games with Konako. She hadn't realized Lynn and Konako were that close. Could it be? The women in the peerage could no longer satisfy Lynn? Yuta's thoughts spiraled, eventually circling back to herself. She couldn't keep going on like this. She was willing to give, was there anything she couldn't give? But the courage she'd finally built up. Weekend. Higurashi Shrine. Yukino and Yui stood beneath the torii gate. "Yukinon, will this really work?" Yui asked nervously, trying her best not to look around too much. It had been a few days since the incident at the old school building. After experiencing multiple encounters with cursed spirits, she'd gotten slightly better at dealing with them. But it was still terrifying. They lived in constant fear every day. Physically and mentally exhausted, dark circles had formed under their eyes. Their energy was completely drained. There were even times when they felt like they might die from fright. The cursed spirits were cunning, disguising themselves and using deception. Several times, they thought they were going to be exposed. If this continued, it wouldn't be any different from death. Yukino also looked worn out, her lips pressed tight. "This is the last shrine nearby. If this doesn't work, we'll have no choice but to ask Lynn for help. Let's go." Yukino took the lead, stepping up the stairs. As they climbed toward the shrine, they kept scanning the area with their peripheral vision. "Yukinon, I don't think there are any cursed spirits here," Yui whispered, a little excited. Yukino's eyes also brightened slightly, hope rising in her chest. "Maybe this shrine really can protect us." After a while, the two of them finally reached the top. They stood just outside the shrine. "Welcome. Are you here to worship?" Kagome Higurashi, dressed in a shrine maiden outfit and holding a broom, looked at the two girls curiously. Something about them didn't seem quite right. Yukino hesitated a moment, then replied, "Yes. We're here to worship." Kagome smiled gently. "All right, please follow me." Yukino and Yui glanced at each other and walked in. This shrine is so clean. Maybe, just maybe. Just as Kagome led them around a corner, passing by a small, somewhat hidden shrine. "Ya-ya-ya!" A terrifying shriek rang out from beneath the shrine. Yukino and Yui froze on the spot. What was that? Why did it sound like something was screaming? Yukino tried to look around discreetly, only relaxing slightly when she didn't see anything suspicious. "It's probably just an illusion. Must be the stress lately playing tricks on me." Just as she started to breathe easy. Bang! Bang bang! Yukino froze again. Ah ha ha ha! Kagome scratched her cheek awkwardly as she looked over at the sealed well. Recently, strange noises had been coming from there, scaring off all the shrine's visitors. Sigh. If this continued, the shrine might really go bankrupt. It's fine, really. Nothing to worry about, just. Kagome stammered, clearly flustered. She really wasn't lying. Even though the well had been making strange noises, nothing unusual was found whenever they opened it to check. And so far, nothing abnormal had occurred at the shrine itself. But visitors were still terrified. Seeing Kagome's awkwardness, Yukino turned toward the direction the sound came from. It didn't seem like it was a cursed spirit. But it was definitely weird. "Let's just finish worshipping and leave quickly. Hopefully this place works." Some time later, They each took a fragment of the Shiken jewel and left Higurashi shrine. Then, it didn't work. Yukino and Yui looked at each other in silence. The reason there were no cursed spirits at that shrine was probably because of the scary noises coming from it, right? Higurashi Shrine. Kagome grumbled, Mom, if we don't fix this, the shrine's going under. I don't know what to do either, her mom replied. Why don't you think of something, Kagome? Monday. Shuchin Academy. 3 p.m., Supernatural Investigation Club. Yukino bowed deeply. Please, President Lynn. Lynn showed no particular expression upon seeing Yukino again. Judging from her condition, she must have had a rough few days. Exorcism services outside of school start at 5 million yen. Just prepare the money. Lynn had finally reopened the exorcism business that had been shelved for some time. 5 million? Yukino's face went stiff. 5 million yen. Her sister and mother could afford that. But just because they could afford it didn't mean she could. Should I ask my sister? Yukino hesitated. She didn't want to involve her family in supernatural matters because of her. But there was no other way. Wait a moment. Yukino left the Supernatural Investigation Club, bit her lip, and called Yukinashita Harano. Well now, this is a surprise. Yukino actually called her big sister, a playful voice answered the phone. Sis. On the other end, Harano paused, set down what she was doing, and narrowed her eyes. Yukino's voice, something's not right. Did something happen? Yukino was silent for a moment, then said, it's nothing. Can you transfer 5 million yen to me? Harano went silent. 5 million yen wasn't much for her. But she wanted to know what Yukino needed it for. Something felt off. She took a deep breath, then teased in a joking tone, what's Yukino going to do? Hire a boyfriend. The silence on the other end said enough. Harano sighed. Knew you wouldn't answer. I'll transfer the 5 million, but... Harano's voice sharpened. I will find out what it's for. The call ended with a sharp beep. Yukino sighed softly. Knew it'd turn out like this. But... this was the only option left. At the very least, she couldn't let Yui continue to suffer. The cursed spirits roaming the streets were beyond them. At least their homes should be safe. She put her phone away and walked back into the Supernatural Investigation Club. The money is ready. Lynn looked up and said, Maiko, go with her. 5 million yen wasn't even enough for him to splurge. Especially for a simple exorcism. Yuta and Maiko would be enough to handle it. He had more important matters to attend to. The devil's summoning had finally activated. Uegahama's house. While Mrs. Uegahama was away, Yui invited Yukino, Yuta and Maiko over. Yuta glanced around. Seeing no cursed spirits of concern, she handed the detection task over to Maiko. At her current level, these low-grade cursed spirits had no effect on her. Maiko, with her ability to exorcise spirit creatures, casually walked around Uegahama's house, poking them one by one. The cursed spirits were like balloons, bursting instantly under Maiko's touch. Seeing such calm and effortless exorcism, Yukino and Yui fell silent. The cursed spirits that used to terrify them were nothing more than fragile decorations in Maiko's hands. This was the difference between ordinary people and those with supernatural abilities. Yukino felt a flicker of regret. Peerage. A memory flashed through her eyes. She regretted it a little. In her effort to avoid being involved with the supernatural, she had tried to slip away quickly. But as Lynn once said, there's no turning back. She had even thought about whether she could somehow make herself unable to see them. But wouldn't that just be self-deception? Even if she couldn't see them, knowing the truth would still cause fear. Since she had already stepped into that world, why bother running? Phew. She took a deep breath and quietly waited for Maiko to finish her exorcism. She understood, this type of exorcism was only a temporary fix. At best, it would make things quiet for a while. Supernatural power. If she could master it, would things be different? She spaced out slightly. Peerage. A trace of confusion passed through her heart. Elsewhere. Lynn tapped on Devil's Summoning and disappeared from the Supernatural Investigation Club. Mahira rested her chin on her hand, quietly watching the spot where Lynn vanished. Tokyo area. Seidenshi residence. Seidenshi held the new Gastria law, which had been rejected again. Her eyes were filled with helplessness. Why? Clearly, cursed children were still human. She shook her head and continued reading the next file, but suddenly froze. This is... She held up a sheet of pitch-black paper, covered in arcane runes that made her dizzy just by looking at them. Pray to the devil and sign a contract, and he will respond to you. There were no visible words, yet she inexplicably understood that sentence. A supernatural event. Seidenshi's expression stiffened. But... Devil. She looked down at the new Gastria law on her desk. Then, she closed her eyes, placing her hands together in prayer. If signing this contract could help her pass the law and protect the cursed children, then even if she had to become a devil, she would gladly do it. She signed her name on the paper, blew gently to dry the ink, and smiled softly. Devil, will you really answer me? She looked hopeful. Though she knew the chances were slim, she still hoped it was real. She had been pushed into this position despite lacking talent. If giving herself up could achieve something good for the world, she would gladly do so. But it was probably just someone's prank, right? She smiled wryly. Who would send something like this to cheer her up after seeing her so stressed? Just as she thought that, the black paper suddenly began to glow. She's mouth parted slightly. Her eyes widened in shock. Are you, the one I made a contract with? Boom boom. Her heartbeat instantly quickened. Her throat went dry. Her eyes widened further. Was this really, the devil? She wanted to cry but couldn't. A devil's voice, must be terrifying, right? She held her breath and turned her head slowly. Seeing Lynn, she blinked, her mind going blank. A very handsome devil? No, he must be human, right? She let out a breath of relief. Just as she thought, how could a devil really exist in this world? This must be a prank. The props were just extremely realistic. But where did this man come from? Just as she was lost in thought, Lynn walked up and picked up the new Gastria law. You want to pass this law, that is your commission. This world really needs devils. To deal with evil people, you need people just as evil. He wasn't a villain but he was a devil. This. She panicked slightly. Just call me Lynn. Ah. Okay, Mr. Lynn. After a moment of panic, her brain quickly caught up and calmed her down. Mr. Lynn, may I ask, how did you get in? Her tone shifted into that of a ruler. Her gaze turned serious. Her hand moved slightly toward the emergency bell. Lynn, as if he hadn't noticed her movements, replied casually, didn't you summon me? Me? She was stunned. The devil's contract. You just signed it and already forgot. Lynn looked at her, speechless. Wasn't that just a prank? Huh? Who told you that? But Mr. Lynn clearly. Before she could finish the sentence doesn't look like a devil, Lynn grinned. The thin wings of a devil unfolded behind him. I am a devil. She's mouth dropped open. Her brain completely froze. Wings? Was he really a devil? Her mind short-circuited. No one ever taught her how to interact with a devil. Her brain, desperately trying to find a solution, went into overdrive. Lynn clicked his tongue. She was the one who summoned a devil, but now she wasn't happy when he actually came. He retracted his wings, giving her no time to think. I've accepted your commission. Once it's complete, I'll come to collect what's mine. Wait. She hurriedly stopped him. Commission? She recalled, she wanted the bill to pass. If he could truly help push the new Gastria law through. That wouldn't be bad, right? If a devil could do it, maybe there really was a chance. But she needed to know how he planned to do it. Choosing her words carefully, her purple eyes became serious. Mr. Lynn, your commission is to get the new Gastria law passed, right? Yeah. Then, may I ask, how do you plan to accomplish it? She was well aware that many high-ranking officials were blocking the law's passage. If she didn't know what the devil intended to do, what if it turned into something disastrous? Lynn's lips curled into a smile. How? Kill the ones who oppose it, then won't it pass? To be continued. Kill them all. She's eyes went blank, her mouth slightly agape. Ah. Confirmed. That was something, only a devil would say. She shot up from her seat in an instant, eyes filled with panic and anxiety. Her small hands waved frantically. No. It's over. Did she accidentally open Pandora's box? Ugh. She felt like crying. But she had to take responsibility. Taking a deep breath, she bowed deeply and pleaded, please, Mr. Lynn, please don't do that. All she wanted was to protect the cursed children but not by killing everyone who opposed her. Lynn leaned casually against her desk, gazing out the window with a distant look, though his tone was relaxed. The commission is yours. How I complete it, is mine. He was considering what benefits this world could offer. Right now, Lynn had two core development plans for his peerage. First, recruit more members. The more peerage members he had, the more feedback he could receive. His power would grow accordingly. Second, monster resources. The experience required for peerage upgrades was just as critical. Not only would this strengthen his peerage, but he'd also gain power in return. Anything outside of these 2 points was meaningless for now. At least, until he reached the level of Mu, Lynn wouldn't consider branching out. Besides, his peerage was still severely understaffed. There was no time or energy to develop any other projects. So, his purpose in this world was crystal clear. Recruit followers. There were millions of unique people in this world. Even if only a portion of them were reincarnated as special devils, as long as they joined his peerage, they would provide him with steady power feedback. Even if they were just low-class devils, they could stack power through sheer numbers. Moo? Or maybe a super moo. Lin's mouth twitched, the corners of his lips twisted into a perverse grin. He'd never imagined that the power of a moo or something even greater could be so close. Millions of cursed children, he was definitely taking them all. Besides, with the zombie world's resources behind him, he wasn't worried about being unable to support them. And once reincarnated as devils, the gastria virus inside them would naturally be purged. No more risk of mutation. He came to save them. He was a righteous devil. But he was short on manpower. With just him and his current peerage, it was impossible to gather all the cursed children alone. It wasn't realistic. He needed a highly useful tool. Lin retracted his gaze and looked at Sidenji, who was clearly on edge, her expression tense enough to twist her eyebrows together. A useful tool, huh? Lin stared at her, voice calm and measured. You don't want the cursed children to be abused anymore, do you? Sidenji inhaled deeply, then replied with resolve, Mr. Lin, I also want to protect those oppressed children. They were human too, they deserved protection and fair treatment. She had never wavered on this belief. However, if those people are killed, society will fall into chaos. She had made it to this position. She wasn't ignorant, she understood how the system worked. She despised many of those people. Hated their filth and hypocrisy. But they were still the managers of human society. If they were all eliminated, the resulting power vacuum would plunge everything into disarray. With the threat of gastria still looming, that kind of collapse could doom them all. As Sidenji, the ruler of the Tokyo area, she couldn't let that happen. She could only hope this devil she summoned would understand. Her expression was deeply troubled. But Lin suddenly let out a small chuckle. Chaos in human society. In that case, wouldn't it be better to eliminate humans altogether? Her mind short-circuited. If there were no humans, then there would be no societal collapse? It did make a twisted kind of sense. But why did Lin suddenly jump from one extreme to another? Was this really how devils thought? Solve the problem from the root? Lin ignored her reaction and walked up to the French window, looking down at the world below. His red eyes swept across the crowds marching on the street, holding signs that read, Expel the cursed children. A protest. Upon seeing it, Lin sneered and whispered to himself, in this world, only devils are qualified. Ah! There it was. The devil's whisper. What did that mean? Was the devil planning to invade the human world? She really did open Pandora's box. Sidenji felt uneasy. But when she followed Lin's gaze, she fell silent. A public demonstration against the cursed Child Human Rights Act. It wasn't a rare occurrence. Even without demonic hearing, she could guess what they were shouting. In truth, the reason the Human Rights Act never passed was largely due to public indifference and opposition. But those very children were the ones defending them, protecting Tokyo. Sidenji couldn't hide her disappointment. Lin's words echoed in her mind. Even devils couldn't stand what humans were doing? What a failure of a species. Lin withdrew his gaze and turned around. The sunlight behind him cast his figure in shadow. Only those ruby-red eyes remained, glowing brilliantly. Sidenji's breath caught. A strange thought flashed through her mind. A devil standing in the sun. Lin reached out his hand toward her, lips curled in a smile. How about becoming the world's first devil? Sidenji stared at his hand, stunned. A devil? Her? You felt it too, haven't you? The powerlessness and incompetence of being human. Lin's eyes glimmered with a strange light as he exposed the weakest part of her heart without hesitation. Sidenji remained silent. You're the ruler of the Tokyo area. Yet you can't even get a single bill passed. Still, she said nothing. You're disappointed in yourself, aren't you? You want to change things, don't you? Huff huff. She was starting to lose control of her breath. Every word Lin said was like a blade, piercing into her already wounded heart. She couldn't help but recall. Cursed children being beaten and insulted in the streets. Cursed children forced to live in the sewers. Cursed children sacrificing themselves in battles to protect Tokyo and humanity. And finally, that moment during the Human Rights Act meeting. That cold, merciless rejection. She murmured to herself, becoming a devil, can that really change everything? Sidenji wanted change. She wanted to change her weak and powerless self. She wanted to change the fate of the cursed children. She wanted to change this twisted world. Sidenji stared blankly at Lin's outstretched hand. A strange impulse stirred in her chest. But, she hadn't forgotten Lin's earlier, extreme words. Wouldn't it be enough to eliminate humans? In this world, only devils are enough. At the end of the day, eliminating humanity, that was still far too terrifying. Sidenchi's heart filled with bitterness. What she desired was peaceful coexistence between humans and cursed children. Even if the new Gastria law was opposed by 82% of Tokyo's population. Even if it was fiercely resisted by the top authorities. Even if coexistence seemed almost impossible. But still, was it truly that extreme? That only one side, either humans or cursed children, could survive? After all, cursed children were still human too. Her gaze was clouded, full of inner conflict. Seeing her hesitating like that, Lynn decided to fan the flames further. You've seen the corpse of a cursed child who didn't reach 15, haven't you? Sidenchi froze. Due to the Gastria virus, even with the help of suppressants, most cursed children didn't live beyond the age of 15. Her eyelashes trembled. Mr. Lin, what do you mean? The Gastria virus means nothing to devils. Her eyes suddenly widened. Her violet pupils showed disbelief and the faintest glimmer of hope. Her voice trembled. Mr. Lin, can you cure the virus inside them? That's right. Mr. Lin was a devil. Maybe. He really could cure the Gastria virus. Seeing her reaction, Lin smirked. His gaze turned deep. He leaned closer to her ear and whispered, now that you know how to save them, are you still going to turn away? Sidenchi bit her lip tightly, fists clenched. She couldn't. She had tried to do so much for the cursed children. But all her efforts, every single one had failed. She was powerless. She couldn't change anything. The cursed children were still being discriminated against and oppressed. But now, the chance to save them was right in front of her. She couldn't let it slip away. Besides, this might be her one and only way to help the cursed children. As long as she could save them. She took a deep breath, lowered her head, and bowed deeply. Please, Mr. Lin. Please, save those children. If I can protect the cursed children, then I... She closed her eyes, her voice trembling as she spoke the final words. I'm willing to do anything. As expected, she was someone who could sacrifice herself for the sake of others. Lin's lips curled upward. Then, let's begin your transformation into a devil. Sidenchi kept her eyes shut, silent, but her lashes trembled violently. There was always a price when dealing with a devil. As the supreme ruler of the Tokyo area, she was all too familiar with human filth and hypocrisy. Becoming a devil, so be it. As for Lin's words about destroying humanity, a sense of helplessness flashed through her heart. She didn't want humanity to collapse. But she also wanted to save the cursed children. The fate of humanity. She'd think about it again after becoming a devil. Sidenchi chose to run from that part. Shameful but necessary. Her silence was as good as agreement. Lin didn't hold back. Take off your clothes. Sidenchi. Her eyes shot open. Her pupils trembled violently, and she parted her lips as if to speak. Do I have to undress to become a devil? She wanted to ask, but in the end, she just let out a long sigh. She'd just said she was willing to do anything. Could she really back down just because she was told to undress? She thought of the cursed children who were forced to live in the sewers. Slowly, she raised a trembling hand and began to remove her dress. Only her light blue undergarments remained. Her eyes remained tightly shut, unwilling to meet Lin's gaze. But she could feel it. Her body felt hot. As if Lin's gaze was directly burning her skin. Show me your back. Lin didn't place the evil piece directly in front of her. Sidenchi already looked unstable. If he did that, it might push her over the edge. She might faint on the spot. Sure enough. When she heard Lin's words, Sidenchi exhaled in relief. It was awkward to turn her back, but at least she wouldn't have to look him in the eye. Same principle. It's embarrassing to run away, but it works. She turned around. Lips pursed, she waited for Lin's next command. Lie down. MMPHH. Her entire body shuddered as she collapsed onto the desk. Inappropriate images flashed through her mind. Click. Her eyes went wide, a trace of shame flickering in her violet pupils. He's unlocking something? He wouldn't, actually. Just as her mind began to spiral into chaotic thoughts. A cold sensation brushed across her skin. She gasped involuntarily, her body flinching. Something had entered her body. Her entire being rapidly heated up, and a strange energy surged outward. The changes in her blood and body nearly made her moan. She bit her lip, forcing herself to endure. Her waist and hips, just above her rear, it tickled unbearably. Endure it. At the same time, Lin received a system notification. Ding. Congratulations, you have obtained a new peerage member, Sidenchi. Ding. Your peerage member has reincarnated into a special devil, the ideal devil. Ding. Skill obtained, Ideal Devil. Ding. Your overall strength has slightly increased. Ideal Devil? Lin narrowed his eyes, staring at Sidenchi's smooth, pale back. The blessing data appeared before him. Sidenchi. Race, Devil, lower class. Peerage, Lin Valifor. Strength, I0. Agility, I0. Durability, I0. Magic, I0. Inherent skills. Ideal Devil. Peace domain, prevents any creature within the domain from developing hostile intent. Utopia, a unique barrier creating a time-stopped illusion of eternal peace. Devil transformation, ideal collapse mode. Dash. Sounds like a control-type ability? Lin wasn't entirely sure about the full extent of Ideal Devil. Temporarily putting it aside, he copied the blessing information, gave Sidenchi a light pat on the back, and said, "It's done. The reincarnation ceremony was a success. You're now a proper devil." Sidenchi, still lying on the desk, looked dazed. She was a devil now? Her body felt stronger. And, she had some kind of mysterious power now. A devil's power? Her mind swirled with questions, but when she remembered she was half naked, her face flushed red. She fumbled to fasten her dress and quickly got dressed again. Ha! Once clothed, Sidenchi finally let out a sigh of relief. Then, a piece of paper appeared in front of her. Your blessings information. Take a look. Lin briefly explained the capabilities of the blessing system. Upon hearing this, Sidenchi's eyes lit up in realization. She clutched the paper detailing the blessing system tightly, her heart filled with complex emotions. She had always wanted to save the cursed children, but lacked the power to do so. In the end, she could only strike a deal with a devil to realize that wish. She thought it would turn into something twisted. After all, it was a legendary evil devil. But she had already steeled herself for sacrifice. So why did it turn out like this? After reincarnating as a devil, she had gained superior physical strength, supernatural magic, an extended lifespan, and slow aging. And she glanced at the blessing data and pursed her lips. Was this the key? This was a complete reward. Sidenchi. She pursed her lips, a flicker of inner conflict in her eyes. Even someone as useless as her, was she really worthy of this? She was clearly just a decorative figure. Just a mascot pushed forward by others. Snap. A large, warm hand gently landed on her head. Sidenchi snapped out of it and looked up slightly, dazed as she stared at Lin. How does it feel to be a devil? Sidenchi lowered her eyelids, unable to meet Lin's gaze. She murmured, "It feels good." Even though her body remained slender, she could clearly feel the explosive power coursing through her. Now that she had become a devil, she should be capable of doing the things she never could as a human, right? Like the cursed children awakening their powers? No. She could become even stronger than them. After all, she was only a low-class devil right now. With the blessing system, she still had enormous room to grow. But Sidenchi bit her lip and asked with some insecurity, "Mr. Lin, why did you choose me?" Of course, it was because of the devil's summoning she had signed. And the evil piece had responded to her. Lin thought to himself. But he didn't say that out loud. He could tell that Sidenchi had some issues with her mentality. Outwardly, she carried herself as the noble, composed, and calm Sidenchi. But in truth, she was just a sensitive and insecure girl. At the end of the day, she was just a high school student standing at the pinnacle of Tokyo's government. Is someone like me really worthy of following you? Her voice was filled with confusion. Someone like Miss Mugen is probably the one who truly deserves to be by your side, right? Don't overthink it. Lin patted her head and smiled. Whether you're worthy or not isn't up to you to decide, it's up to me. Yes. It was determined by the evil piece. Certified by the evil piece. Without a doubt, you're the talent I need. Sidenchi stared at Lin in a daze. That warm smile instantly shattered the cloud of doubt in her heart. Lin pinched her cheek and continued, "Besides, your current identity is still extremely useful in this world. Gathering the cursed children. Without Sidenchi's help, it would have taken much longer. His peerage wasn't that large yet." Hearing Lin's words, Sidenchi nodded seriously. "Please tell me what I need to do, Mr. Lin." Since he was allowing her to follow him, then she had to prove her worth. She didn't want to be a decorative figure anymore. Lin continued pinching her cheek and said, "Don't rush. First, let's see what you can do." Only then did Sidenchi realize Lin's hand was still on her cheek. Sidenchi pressed her lips together but didn't resist Lin's little gesture. Compared to the gift Mr. Lin had given her, this bit of cheek pinching was nothing. Just that, it was the first time a guy had ever pinched her cheek like this, so she felt a bit shy. She forced herself to focus on the blessing document in her hands. Following Lynn's advice, she skipped the basic attributes all currently I0 and went straight to the master's field. A strange feeling stirred in her chest. Her heartbeat quickened, and she quickly diverted her gaze to the last section, inherent skills. Ideal devil. Sidenchi's emotions grew more complicated. That name always gave her a subtle feeling. Was he mocking her for being an idealist? Peaceful territory and utopia. Yes, those were the social ideals she once worked so hard for. But none of them had come true. In fact, she hadn't even taken the first step. But these abilities suit me perfectly. She was a pacifist. She didn't like fighting. This was perfect for her. Seeing that Sidenchi had finished reading her blessing data, Lin sat back in his office chair and casually flipped through the documents on his desk. On the desk, aside from the new Protocolata law, there were documents about the new human plan, special forces, cursed children arrangements, and more. He didn't understand any of it. After flipping through a few pages casually, Lin gave up. Even though he had watched Black Bullet before. This was still a real world now, with social systems vastly different from his own. After thinking it over, Lin decided not to make plans on his own. With Sidenchi, who knew this world best, by his side, there was no need to stress his brain cells. He tapped the desk rhythmically with his index finger and said, I plan to reincarnate all the cursed children as devils. As long as they're reincarnated as devils, the protovirus in their bodies will be neutralized by the cells of the evil devil. And I'll also gain more followers. Followers. Sidenchi, still fresh from her own devil transformation, blinked in confusion. She knew that everything she had now belonged to Mr. Lin. But she still didn't understand the concept of followers very clearly. Lin had to explain to her what followers meant. I see. Sidenchi nodded in realization. So it meant being Mr. Lin's servant. She had no resistance to that idea. After all, by becoming Mr. Lin's servant, she had already gained immense strength and potential. And Mr. Lin had promised to save the cursed children. To Sidenchi, the cursed children would probably be overjoyed. Even if they weren't given power, as long as someone accepted them, they would already be satisfied, right? Not to mention, after becoming devils, their bodies would return to normal. To the cursed children, being saved by Mr. Lin was probably the greatest blessing in the world. Mr. Lin, what should I do? Sidenchi's expression turned serious. Find all the cursed children, gather them together, and wait for me to reincarnate them one by one. Lin gave his order. Sidenchi took a deep breath, her gaze firm. Understood. Gathering all the cursed children was no simple task. The first problem. Sidenchi was only the ruler of the Tokyo area. Her influence extended solely within Tokyo's borders. Secondly, she was merely the nominal supreme ruler. There were many things she could attempt, but she was constantly restrained. For example, the failure of the Cursed Children's Human Rights Act. Moreover, the cursed children were not without oversight. Take the international organization IISO, for example. They viewed the cursed children as assets and tools, having already gathered a large number of them. They were incredibly influential in the international community, so much so that even Sidenchi, the ruler of Tokyo, had to occasionally yield to them. If she wanted to gather all the cursed children, it would inevitably result in conflict with the IISO. Sidenchi frowned, carefully explaining each obstacle. Lin remained calm. You just need to find a way to gather the cursed children. As for the rest, I'll take care of it. Sidenchi fell silent. Lin's words reminded her of something she'd been avoiding. Would he really go as far as exterminating humanity? She swallowed hard and said anxiously, after the cursed children, what does Mr. Lin intend to do? Well, most likely cleanse the humans. Lin sounded a bit unsure. By that point, he'd probably have reached the level of a Mu. It shouldn't take much time to carry out a cleansing. As expected. Sidenchi's face darkened. But she still wanted to try. Please give me some time, Mr. Lin. She lowered her head and said sincerely, first, I will establish a shelter far from the outer districts. To provide refuge for the unfortunate children in the outer zones. At the same time, I'll crack down on black market trading of cursed children and rescue as many of them as I can. And finally. Her eyes burned with determination. I'll negotiate with the IISO and other regional leaders to request that all cursed children be sent to Tokyo. During this process, I believe Mr. Lin will come to see the good in humanity. At that time, I hope you'll reconsider humanity's survival in this world, Mr. Lin. When she spoke those final words, her gaze held a pleading look. She was, at her core, a kind-hearted person. She wanted both the cursed children and humanity to have a hopeful future. And so, she begged Lin for time, not just for her, but for this world. Maybe, if he saw something truly beautiful, Lin would change his mind? As for whether Lin was capable of cleansing humanity, she had no doubt. Lin's eyes narrowed slightly. He looked at Sidenshi with intrigue. He hadn't expected one of his own followers to still go this far for humanity. Sidenshi. You're still standing too high. You can't see what's truly happening below. Do you really think all that filth and corruption is just a surface stain? But isn't that what makes it interesting? He already knew the truth of this world's background. There might be good people. But not many. Lin could allow those few to live. But the others? That was uncertain. The more he learned about this world, the more he saw its ugliness. When the political machine known as Sidenshi finally began moving, her actions would inevitably influence all of Tokyo. When that time came, when she saw the world's true filth, what would she do then? He was looking forward to it. Lin's long silence caused cold sweat to form on Sidenshi's forehead. But soon after, she heard his voice and breathed a sigh of relief. All right. Do it your way. Sidenshi, I'll be watching closely. What will you do after witnessing the world's darkness? Ha! Sidenshi exhaled and smiled softly, relief washing over her. Thank you, Mr. Lin. Thank you, for giving humanity a chance. Lin responded with a calm smile. He had always been tolerant of the wishes of his peerage. Besides, the task of reincarnating all the cursed children into devils couldn't be completed in a day. He had time. Let her go ahead and try. Let the game play out slowly. Once all the cursed children became his followers, the future of this world would be his to decide. At the same time, Lin's peerage harem got group. Kashomajayaka Utah, Master, is the new world any fun? Sigma Man, not bad. Might be fun if we go all out and kill. Kashomajayaka Utah? After Lin gave a quick rundown of the situation in this world, the entire group erupted in outrage. Busujima Psycho, the humans in this world are even worse than zombies. Kashomajayaka Utah, wait, they rely on the cursed children to protect them, but still abuse and oppress them? Supernatural Investigation Club. Utah stared at her phone, disbelief written across her face. How could there be humans this disgusting? Even Mahiru's expression turned serious. Her brows furrowed, concern welling in her eyes. If this keeps going, the cursed children. They'll be wiped out, won't they? They're just kids. Mahiru shared her worries in the group. Sigma Man, don't worry, Mahiru. The cursed children will be fine. Sigma Man, because we're here. Zombie world. Psycho licked her lips with anticipation. The bloodlust she hadn't felt for a while flared up again. That world needs to be purged. Sigma Man, once the shelter is secured, everyone come to the Black Bullet world. Busujima Psycho, yes, Master. The rest of the group responded one after another. Each of them eager to get justice for the cursed children. Black Bullet world. Lin grinned slightly. Even though Sidenshi said she'd assign staff for the shelter, he didn't trust them. Besides, Lin planned to turn that shelter into a residence exclusively for his peerage members. He had no intention of letting outsiders in. As for her manpower, once the first cursed child was reincarnated as a devil, he'd have all the help he needed. It's only natural for cursed children to help cursed children. The next day, a meeting was held. Sidenshi proposed converting an abandoned warehouse district in Tokyo's Akayaka ward into a shelter for the cursed children living in the outer zones. Sidenshi stood firm and declared, everyone, I will begin accommodating the cursed children from the outer districts. I ask for your full cooperation. As soon as the words left her mouth, the conference room fell into complete silence. Several people subtly glanced toward Tendo Kikunoju. Seeing that he remained silent, someone immediately stood up. Your Holiness, I don't believe this is appropriate. Hearing that, Sidenshi sighed deeply in her heart. She knew the road ahead would be difficult. But she didn't expect someone would block her at the very first step. Ever since Sidenshi put forth her proposal, the entire room had devolved into a drawn-out argument. But ultimately, everyone conveyed the same core message. That current human resources were already strained maintaining the front lines. There was no capacity to divert manpower or resources to accommodate the cursed children in the outer districts. Sidenshi sat silently, listening with an unreadable expression, offering no response. Until the meeting was about to end, she suddenly spoke. Tendo-san, do I no longer have the authority to designate an area for housing cursed children? In an instant, the meeting room fell into dead silence. Nearly everyone lowered their heads and pretended not to hear. Directly named by Sidenshi, Tendo Kikunoju finally opened his eyes. I support Her Highness Sidenshi's proposal. With that, the meeting concluded. Sidenshi's proposal was finally passed. Tendo Kikunoju quietly watched Sidenshi's retreating figure. His gaze deepened. Her Highness Sidenshi seems a little different. A subordinate approached from the side. Lord Tendo, what should we do about the shelter issue? Tendo Kikunoju didn't look at him. He replied flatly, follow protocol. Be sure to bury the explosives. Once enough of the cursed children are gathered, remove them from this world. Hearing this, the man lowered his head, drenched in cold sweat. Dash. At the end of the corridor, Seitenshi paused for 9.8 seconds, then turned around in disbelief and looked back at Tendo Kikunoju. A devil's hearing was incredibly sharp. How could this be? Her eyes widened slightly, and she wavered. She had always known Tendo Kikunoju opposed her efforts. But at the very least, on the surface he had supported her. She had trusted him. If not for her reincarnation as a devil, she would never have known that the very person who helped pass her proposal had already turned around and plotted against the cursed children. She turned again, mechanically making her way back to her office. On the other side, Tendo Kikunoju furrowed his brows. Why did Her Highness suddenly turn back just now? A vague sense of unease welled up in his heart. Dash. Inside the office, Seitenshi sat blankly. Are cursed children so unforgivable? Why even? She quickly gathered herself. Tendo Kikunoju couldn't be trusted. But even someone she trusted most would go behind her back like this. Was there anyone left in this world who could be trusted? No. This wasn't the time to dwell on that. She had to notify Lynn immediately. Otherwise, it could escalate into a diplomatic incident. She paused, then made the call. Hello, this is Tendo Civil Security Corporation. Ms. Kisara, it's me. Seitenshi issued a request over the phone. 500,000. The woman gasped, then said seriously, don't worry, Your Highness. I'll get it done. After hanging up, Kisara looked exhilarated. She hadn't expected to earn 500,000 yen just for running an errand. What a great deal. But would someone really go as far as bombing the shelter in advance? Who's that ruthless? Kisara clicked her tongue and muttered, dirty bastard. Dash. Tokyo, Akayaka District. Lynn surveyed the area with a satisfied nod. The location Seitenshi chose wasn't bad. So you're the 500,000 yen. Lynn. Tendo Kisara approached and blurted out her thoughts. She had rushed over fast. After all, 500,000 yen was on the line. She didn't waste a second. And with Seitenshi's detailed description, Lynn was easy to recognize. That's right. Lynn looked at her in slight surprise. Tendo Kisara? She leaned in, looked around, then tiptoed and whispered in Lynn's ear, Her Highness Seitenshi asked me to remind you, there are explosives buried in the shelter. Lynn's eyes remained calm. He smiled. Thanks for the heads up. Tendo Kisara. That calm? What a weird guy. I've passed along the message, so I'll be on my way now. She waved behind her and left in high spirits. Kisara was quite something. Lynn glanced at the glowing evil peace panel. Then looked back at the warehouse under renovation, his expression cooling slightly. He'd originally planned to take things slow, but clearly someone didn't want him to. Fine. He should get Seitenshi a phone. It was inconvenient not being able to reach her directly. Dash. Not long after. Ding. Seitenshi has joined the chat group. Seitenshi, hello everyone, I'm Mr. Lynn's newest peerage member. At her residence, Seitenshi looked at the simple, straightforward name of the chat group and smiled helplessly. But she didn't have time to dwell on that for long. Kashumajayaka Yutaa, are you the governor of the Black Bullet world? Seitenshi, only of the Tokyo area. Kashumajayaka Yutaa, you're a devil now too? Kashumajayaka Yutaa, then why haven't you drafted a plan to wipe out humanity? Seitenshi? Seitenshi stared at her phone in stunned silence. Busujima Psycho, do you need a cross-world human cleansing service? Busujima Psycho, I'm happy to help. Seitenshi. Seitenshi, ah, seems like everyone has strong opinions about the humans in my world. Her hand trembled slightly as she held the phone, her expression complex. It's over. Her world's reputation was really bad in the eyes of the peerage. Yatsuya Maiko, can they be turned into cursed spirits? I still need some experience pills to level up. Kashumajayaka Yutaa, you're still the most ruthless one here. Dash. A few days later, the abandoned warehouse in Akayaka district was fully renovated. A flash of white light appeared in the now cleared space. A group of beautiful girls stepped through the gate. They looked around curiously. Huh? Doesn't seem all that special. Lynn clapped his hands, drawing everyone's attention. First of all, our top priority in this world is to save the cursed children. Yet, Yutaa and the others nodded firmly. Second, we'll turn this world into a special grind dungeon. Psycho licked her lips excitedly. A new battlefield to satisfy her bloodlust. Yutaa silently shifted away from her. By the way, Yuako. Hi. Yuako floated over, clinging to Lynn, and rubbed against him enthusiastically. Seeing that, Yutaa gnashed her teeth in envy. Lynn hoisted a bundle of explosives and grinned. Return this to its original owner. Yuako blinked. Ah. Looks like someone's in trouble. Also, don't forget to ask Seitenshi for the address. That evening. Tokyo, Tendo Mansion. Heya. Yuako drifted along the street with a bundle of explosives in her hands. However, due to her ghost form, no one could see her. Even the items she touched remained invisible to the public. Above the Tendo residence, Yuako hovered, gesturing in a specific direction. Then, she began her devil transformation. Extreme Ghost Mode. In short, it allowed her to freely shift between visible and invisible states. Hi! She waved at the Tendo family members strolling through the courtyard and greeted them. For a moment, the startled family members stopped in their tracks, looking around in confusion. It's up there. They immediately looked up. And their eyes widened in horror at the sight of Yuako floating in the air. What is that? A human, floating. Panic broke out across the Tendo household. Quiet. An old man stepped out of the mansion. The moment he saw Yuako, his pupils contracted sharply. A cursed child? Judging by her eye color, he could tell. A previously undocumented strain of Gastria virus? Wasn't it said that the avian-type Gastria couldn't produce offspring? Did the experiments already reach that stage? But more importantly, why had she come to the Tendo residence? The old man was apprehensive, but maintained composure. He stepped forward and asked calmly, "Young lady, what can we do for you?" Yuako blinked, then looked around. Not seeing her target, she asked, "Tendo Kikunoju, that's his name, right? She's looking for the head of the family." Yuako suddenly pulled the explosives from behind her, making the old man's eyelids twitch in alarm. "Wait!" Just as he was about to stop her, he heard Yuako's cheerful voice. "Returning this to the original owner." Boom! Flames erupted and swallowed the night. A violent explosion echoed across the Tokyo skyline. Yuako clapped in midair. Done, mission complete. For her, as a ghost devil, this kind of job was nothing. She floated around the wreckage of the Tendo estate, confirming that no one remained alive. Then drifted back to the clan residence. Seitenshi's bedroom. Seitenshi stood in front of the French windows, quietly staring in the direction of the Tendo estate. The moment Yuako asked for the address of the Tendo residence in the group, she had already expected the outcome. She sighed softly. Why would you provoke a devil? However, Tendo Kikunoju had already gone to Osaka. He barely escaped. She wondered what kind of expression he'd wear when he returned. The next day. Major news shook Tokyo. The Tendo estate had been bombed overnight. No one from the household survived. Only Kikunoju and a few family members accompanying him to Osaka managed to escape. Tendo Civil Security Corporation. Kisara held the morning paper in trembling hands, her body spasming as laughter spilled from her lips. Ha! Ha ha! Ha 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 ha! Her laughter turned increasingly deranged. The once proud Tendo family, reduced to rubble. Tendo Kikunoju, you old bastard! Did you ever think there'd be a day like this? Ha 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 ha! Shame you managed to get away. But next time, I'll come greet you with a blade in hand. Knock knock. Suddenly, the office door was knocked. Kisara suppressed her hysteria slightly. Come in. Swish. As soon as the words left her mouth, the door swung open. Satomi Rentaro entered, a grim expression on his face. Seeing him, Kisara narrowed her eyes and sneered, well, well. If it isn't the big-shot politician. What brings you here today? She never got along with Rentaro. Because he was Tendo Kikunoju's adopted son. And she despised the Tendo family. Rentaro slammed the newspaper down on Kisara's desk and said coldly, Miss Kisara, that explosion at the Tendo estate. It was clearly orchestrated. As a member of the Tendo family, please come with me to uncover the truth. I swear, I'll bring the culprit to justice. His tone was firm and righteous. He wanted to use this chance to bridge the distance between Kisara and the Tendo family. Don't act so familiar, we're not close. Tendo Kisara's voice was cold. The truth? She couldn't be happier. Did he seriously think she still held any feelings for the Tendo family, just because of a shared surname? He knew why she left the Tendo family, didn't he? Now he came here to talk about justice? Was he trying to disgust her? But she really did want to know who that kind soul was, who avenged her so cleanly. Sure. Kisara smiled faintly. Great politician, be sure to investigate thoroughly. As soon as you find the truth, make sure you tell me. She must repay that kind-hearted person. But explosives? Tendo Kisara fell into deep thought. She had a pretty good suspect in mind. Tokyo, Akayaka District. Lynn's peerage had mobilized. The plan to house the cursed children from the outer districts was underway. Inside the newly renovated warehouse, Lynn stood before 13 cursed children. They stood close together, trembling slightly. Their eyes were filled with fear and anxiety. Only 13. Lynn turned to Psycho. Was this a bit low? Psycho bowed respectfully and reported. My apologies, Master. We visited 13 hiding spots where cursed children were staying. But from each location, only one representative was willing to come. Lynn understood immediately. These kids were sent to scout ahead. Being cautious made sense. After all, there were too many shelters that claimed to help cursed children, only to turn them over for human experimentation or trafficking. Such incidents weren't rare in this world. So for cursed children, the word shelter wasn't something they could trust. If not for this shelter having Seaton's endorsement, even getting these 13 to show up would have been impossible. How much pain had these children endured to become this cautious? Lynn scanned the room. Each child looked malnourished and pale. They trembled ever so slightly, avoiding eye contact. Afraid. But still, they came. In hopes of finding a place where they could finally belong. Gambling on the possibility that someone might still have a conscience. After all, if they had any other choice, who would be willing to take that kind of risk? Lynn softened his expression, raising a gentle hand to touch the head of the girl in front of him. The moment his hand came down, the girl shut her eyes tightly, her eyelashes trembling, her body shaking uncontrollably. But she didn't dodge. If I dodge, I'll get hit again, right? But sometimes, even if I don't dodge, I still get hit. To be continued. Junk Dog's note, bonus for 1200 PS. Next bonus at 1400 PS. Let's get higher, guys. Noticed that some people haven't seen Black Bullet, so here's a little info. In the world of Black Bullet, humanity is on the brink of extinction due to a deadly parasite known as the Gastria virus. When humans are infected, they transform into monstrous creatures called Gastria, which is based on animals, which possess inhuman strength, speed, and regenerative abilities. A strange side effect of the virus led to the birth of special children known as cursed children. These are only girls who were born with traces of the Gastria virus in their bodies while still in the womb. As a result, they possess supernatural abilities, enhanced strength, agility, regeneration, and sometimes unique powers depending on the Gastria type influencing them. However, the virus in their bodies means they also carry the potential to eventually transform into Gastria if not monitored. Therefore, cursed children are heavily discriminated against. When Lynn placed his hand on her head and gently patted it, she was taken aback. People she'd met before either hit or scolded them, and their actions were always rough. But this, so gentle. It was the first time she had met a good person. She was absolutely sure. Lynn had no idea that with just a small gesture, this little girl had already given him the good guy card. 13 cursed children. Lynn's eyes flickered slightly. Low-class devil. Race, devil. Master, Lynn Valifor. Strength, I0. Agility, I0. Durability, I0. Magic, I0. Inherent skill. Mole type Gastria factor. Earth perception. Agility, I0. Durability, I0. Magic, I0. Inherent skill. Hedgehog type Gastria factor. Existence dilution. The cursed children sat in a row, upper bodies bare, feeling nervous for reasons they couldn't explain. Lynn carried out the reincarnation rituals for them one by one. Unsurprisingly, they were all ordinary devils. Which made sense, special devils were rare. However, because they were infected with the Gastrula virus, each of them awakened a unique skill. This was within Lynn's expectations. As he listened to the system notifications ringing non-stop. You've obtained the skill. Your strength has slightly increased. Ding. Your skill evil piece has slightly changed. After reincarnating all of them into his peerage, Lynn took a moment to sense the changes. His strength had increased slightly, but not enough for a qualitative leap. Still a long way to go. Just thinking about how many cursed children he still had to reincarnate one by one gave him a headache. And if he ended up with millions of them? If he had to bless them all every time, wouldn't he be working endlessly? He opened the evil piece panel to check the changes. It was still the starry sky layout. Although he'd gathered many followers, only 7 chess pieces could orbit him. Only special devils qualify. He looked into the distance. It seemed a dozen evil pieces stood silently like grains of sand, floating in a space both near and far. In another direction, only 2 chess pieces appeared, looking quite lonely. Those were probably Rei and Saya. Lynn focused, and the 2 pieces floated into his hand. Miyamoto Rei, Takagi Saya. As expected. He clicked on Rei's chess piece. The blessing details immediately appeared. So it's possible to check their blessing information directly from here? It wasn't just viewing the blessings info. At the bottom of the blessings screen, there was an additional update button. Lin's expression changed slightly. He picked up Psycho's evil piece and checked it again. But this time, there was no update option. A flash of realization crossed his eyes. Special devils are different from ordinary devils. Even though they were all his peerage members. Special devils not only possessed unique abilities, but also had terrifyingly high potential. It was like an organization, you had high-ranking officers and general staff. Within his peerage, the special devils were clearly the elites, while ordinary devils made up the basic ranks. Lynn thought about it for a moment. This change was actually quite good. At least he wouldn't have to manually update blessings for the ordinary devils anymore. Putting Rei and Psycho's evil pieces back into place, Lynn looked again at the flowing sand-like evil pieces formed by the cursed children. Apoptosis genome, incubating. A new skill? Lynn's eyes narrowed in doubt. Could evil piece actually generate new skills through his peerage? He nodded thoughtfully. Apoptosis genome, incubating. Factor collection, acquired, mole factor, hedgehog factor. Factor fusion, dual factor integration. Unfinished. Lynn. So. What exactly is this? He looked over the information carefully and realized all the Gastria factors had been gathered from the cursed children he had reincarnated into his peerage. However, for now, these factors didn't seem to provide any direct benefit to him. After all, as an ultimate class devil, those minor abilities weren't useful to him anymore. But maybe once he gathered more factors, something unexpected would happen. Leaving the evil piece space, Lynn noticed the cursed children poking at their backs in disbelief. We grew wings. What? Are we turning into Gastria creatures from erosion? But I don't feel any weird changes. The cursed children were a little panicked. Mahiru quickly comforted them, don't worry, everyone just got reincarnated as devils. Hearing her voice, they gradually calmed down. Then they remembered what Shiana had asked earlier, do you want to become devils? Huh? So, becoming a devil was real. The cursed children gasped in disbelief. At first, when they were told to take off their clothes, they thought it was to examine their level of Gastria erosion. After all, if any of them had excessive erosion, it could pose a threat to the entire shelter. They all understood that. But this was an actual devil reincarnation ritual. It's gone. Completely gone. Noda Mariko was shocked. The pain is gone. Because of long-term erosion by the Gastria virus, the cursed children often suffered from intense nerve pain. Mahiru, check their conditions. As a proper shelter, the Seitenshi had naturally provided equipment for testing Gastria virus erosion. After a short while, the results came in. The Gastria virus had completely disappeared from their bodies. The children stood there in a daze, murmuring. So, we're no longer cursed children. That's right. Lynn smiled and nodded. You're devils now. Devils. Their eyes sparkled. Then, can we live past 15? Not just 15. Devils have a very long lifespan. Mahiru smiled and replied warmly. Upon hearing that, tears welled up in their eyes. Amazing. It's amazing to be a devil. They jumped around in joy. Nishida Tsubomi walked up to Lin, looked up at him, and carefully asked, Lin-sama, can I bring other people here too? Gathering her courage, she continued, I want everyone to become devils too. As long as they became devils, they could all live normal lives. Lin smiled, patting her head gently. Of course. Bring as many as you want. I'll accept every single one. This was exactly the outcome he was aiming for. With the credibility established by the first batch of girls, more and more cursed children would come to the shelter on their own. And as they grew stronger, the girls would naturally spread the word to others. It was far more efficient than waiting for the Seitenshi to organize anything. As for how to manage these girls, Lin thought it over. He didn't plan to send them out to farm EXP right away. They were only around 10 years old. Let them enjoy a carefree life for a few years. Once they grew up, they could decide what they wanted to do. As his peerage expanded, development would become necessary. And at that point, they'd surely have a role to play. They'd need a proper teacher. Thinking of that, Lin messaged Natsuki Minamiya. Lin, Natsuki-chan, would you consider becoming part of my peerage? Natsuki-chan. Natsuki-chan, you've finally lost it, huh? Trying to pick up your school's little teacher now. Lin, so you admit you're a little girl. TCH. Seeing that Natsuki stopped replying, Lin shrugged with a bored look. Main world, teacher's office. Natsuki ignored Lin's later messages. Still, she found his bold comment amusing. This devil actually dared to tease her? Natsuki narrowed her eyes slightly, resting her chin on one hand. Lately, Lin's strength had been bothering her. Every time they met, she could clearly feel changes in his aura. Last time, she had used a grade 1 cursed spirit as a little test. In the past, Lin wouldn't have agreed to take one on so casually. After all, he was just a mid-level devil back then. Dealing with a grade 1 cursed spirit should have still posed a challenge. But this time, he only requested a grade 1 cursed item and accepted immediately. He clearly had full confidence in his power. So in less than 2 months, what exactly had this devil experienced to boost his strength so drastically? If anything stood out, it was the fact that Lynn had been recruiting a lot of peerage members lately. At the very least, he should already be at high-class devil level now. As a human mage, she had some understanding of devils. To recruit followers, one must at least be a high-class devil. But still, doubt flashed in her eyes as she stared at the student profiles on her desk. Kazuma Jayaka Yuta, Yatsuya Maiko, Shiina Mahiru, Yurikawa Hana. She glanced through their backgrounds again, brows furrowing. Aren't these girls just normal humans? Sacred gear users? Natsuki frowned again. She'd had a few encounters with Kazuma Jayaka Yuta since she often took leave through Lynn. Aside from the devilish aura around her, there was no trace of sacred gear power at all. So, why was he gathering such ordinary people? Also, they're all beautiful girls. Don't tell me this guy is planning to use his identity as a devil to build a harem at school. Natsuki remained skeptical about the followers Lynn had recruited. The more she thought about it, the more convinced she became of her suspicion. Why else would he gather so many beautiful girls and ordinary people as followers? Natsuki gritted her teeth. That devil dares to bring chaos into the academy. So, was Lynn asking her to join just for his harem? You bastard! You've really got some nerve. Swish! The door to the teacher's office was pushed open. Yo, who managed to piss you off this badly, Natsuki-chan? Hiratsuka Shizuka strolled in with a teasing tone. Natsuki frowned. How many times have I told you not to add Chan to my name? You're going to ruin my image in front of the students. It's fine, it's fine. Shizuka waved it off casually. You look so cute anyway, the students will behave just fine. Smack. Ouch. Shizuka immediately held her head. Natsuki expressionlessly withdrew her folding fan. You iron-fisted sensei, get to the point. And knock before you enter next time. You're so heartless, Natsuki-chan. Seeing the fan rise again, Shizuka quickly changed to a serious tone. Natsuki, has anything strange been going on with Yuki Nashida lately? Yuki Nashida? Natsuki raised an eyebrow, then relaxed. You mean the head of the service club? Shizuka twitched slightly. Every time she heard that name, she couldn't help but cringe. If you mean strange, would encountering something supernatural count? Supernatural? Shizuka's expression shifted. Her family background gave her some understanding of these matters, but as a regular human, her chances of encountering anything supernatural were slim. Still, if this involved supernatural elements, things could get complicated. How was she supposed to explain this to Harano? Well, why not ask the president of the Supernatural Investigation Club? Natsuki didn't feel like explaining much, so she pushed the matter onto Lynn. The president of the Supernatural Investigation Club, hi. Shizuka nodded solemnly. Got it. After leaving a word of thanks, she quickly exited Natsuki's office. Is everyone looking for that kid now? Natsuki muttered. She already knew. The school board was investigating the incident at the old school building. And their trail had probably led to the Supernatural Investigation Club. But Lynn was a devil. No matter how powerful a human was, they were nothing in the face of true supernatural beings. You'd best not provoke a devil, Shinomiya Oko. Shuchin Academy, Board of Directors. Oko sat frowning at the documents in his hands. You're sure it wasn't Natsuki Minamiya? As one of the Academy's directors, he was aware of Natsuki's true identity. And as a member of the Shinomiya family, he understood this world was far more complex than it appeared. But there was an old saying. The more you know, the more afraid you become. The deeper his knowledge of the supernatural grew, the less secure he felt. He wanted power. But the wealth and status that had once made him invincible now seemed useless in the face of this unseen world. The most he could get were scraps of knowledge and worthless basic onmyoji magic. He lacked the talent and the time to learn it properly. So, he tried another path. Wouldn't it be enough to raise an obedient cursed spirit? Obviously not. He could nurture it, but not control it at all. If not for that ridiculously expensive barrier, it would have already gone out of control and caused a disaster. But he couldn't expose any of this. After all, he had caused it. If anyone found out, it could threaten his status as the heir. Now that the barrier was broken, he could only panic silently. He had bet on Natsuki Minamiya, the top human magic user, stepping in to contain the situation. And he had won the bet. But the one who actually handled it wasn't Natsuki Minamiya. It was the Supernatural Investigation Club. His expression shifted. A student club at Shuchin possessed that level of power? His heart burned with ambition. He cupped his chin in thought, his gaze turning deep and contemplative. Having student status made certain things far more convenient. Kaguya. It's time for you to serve the Shinomiya family. Coffee shop. Yukinashita Harino slowly stirred her coffee, eyes absent-mindedly gazing out the window. Lately, Yukino's condition had left her restless. Now that she finally had a moment, she rushed over. Soon after, she spotted Hiratsuka Shizuka approaching, her eyes lighting up as she stood and waved. Over here. Did you find anything? As soon as Shizuka sat down, Harino asked urgently. Shizuka rolled her eyes. She hadn't even taken a sip of water yet. Normally, Harino would never act like this. But since this involved Yukino, she was clearly flustered. After a brief pause, Shizuka asked, Harino, have you heard of supernatural events? Hi. Harino was stunned. The Yukinashita family was a prestigious household in Chiba Prefecture, but in the broader Tokyo scene, they were dismissed as country nobles. Although her father was a councilman, he was just a regional one. She had no real exposure to anything supernatural, at least not beyond what she saw in fiction. But... Shizuka. You're not joking, right? Shizuka sighed bitterly. I figured you'd react like that. Harino fell silent. But from Shizuka's tone, she could tell this wasn't a joke. So. Was the world she knew not the full picture? Her gaze drifted blankly as she muttered, so. Yukino encountered something supernatural. Seeing that she was beginning to accept it, Shizuka reassured her, I don't know the full details, but Yukino might just be shaken and having a hard time processing it. Then what's the deal with the 5 million yen? Harino's eyes narrowed slightly, recalling Yukino's suspicious money transfer. But she chose not to mention it to Shizuka. Instead, Shizuka continued, before coming here, I asked around and someone recommended the Supernatural Investigation Club at Shuchin. Maybe they're connected. The Supernatural Investigation Club? The name alone made it sound like some paranormal-themed club. But... they were still just students, right? Harino didn't think much of it. If I remember right, the director of that club should be Lynn, right? Harino's expression froze. Lynn. Val4. Wasn't that the name linked to the account Yukino had transferred money to? Not long after Yukino made the transfer, she had tracked down the recipient's identity through her own channels. She hadn't expected. It turned out to be the president of the Supernatural Investigation Club. Harino furrowed her brows. Looks like it's time to pay the Supernatural Investigation Club a visit. To be continued. At the same time, Black Bullet World late at night. A group of little girls gathered inside a single house, chatting away non-stop. They were clearly ecstatic. Mr. Lin is totally an angel. No. He's a devil. Right. Angels never came to save us. That's gotta be God. Nope. He's a devil. A devil. Then, is he a devil angel? It's decided. When I grow up, I'll become a priestess who serves Lord Lin. What? No way. I'm the only one who can be Lord Lin's priestess. Hey. Quit fighting. We're all Lord Lin's priestesses. Yai. After their spirited argument, the energy finally faded, and they drifted off to sleep. The next morning, the cursed children woke up early. Even though they were only around 10 years old, their harsh lives had made them unusually mature. Lin hadn't just taken them in, he had turned them into devils, completely breaking the curse of the Gastria virus. In their eyes, Lin was their god. They were determined to repay him. So they looked forward to doing anything they could for Lin. Lin smiled as he saw their eagerness. He didn't turn them down. They needed to feel useful, to feel that they had value. That sense of being needed would help them heal. Then, I'll leave the mission of bringing back more companions to you. Yes, sir. Outer District. Nishida Tsubomi arrived at a remote sewer. She squatted down and knocked on the manhole cover rhythmically. After a short while, a small head peeked out cautiously. The girl wore a ragged cap. Her long silver hair was messy, her brows sunken with fatigue, and tension flickered in her silver-violet eyes. Upon seeing Nishida Tsubomi, she breathed a sigh of relief. In a weak voice, she said, Tsubomi, you're back. Fuse-chan, I brought good news. Ah, really? The girl quickly stepped aside. Come in. Nishida Tsubomi nodded and slipped skillfully into the sewer. What a shame, her freshly changed clothes would soon be soaked with that damp, sour smell. She composed herself and looked around at the children gathered within. It was a small hiding place, with only 14 cursed children, including herself. They all stared at Tsubomi with hopeful eyes. Tomoko didn't let them down. Everyone, listen up. Our savior has come. At the same time, similar events unfolded at 12 other hiding spots. Not long after. With the efforts of the first batch of cursed children, word had spread. though many of the others were still hesitant, skeptical, or fearful. Their trust in their companions was enough to push them to leave the sewers. They followed their friends toward the shelter described as a sanctuary created by God. 2 military green trucks were parked at a central location that could access all the hiding spots. Psycho leaned calmly against one of them. Her gaze remained sharp, constantly scanning her surroundings. The outer area was far from safe. Gastria creatures would sometimes appear, attacking any cursed children who ventured out to scavenge. According to the first batch of girls, a total of 113 cursed children would be rescued this time. With such a large-scale migration, if they ran into Gastria, it could trigger mass panic. Still, as long as it wasn't a stage 4 Gastria, Psycho could handle it alone while protecting the girls. We've got incoming. Psycho suddenly spoke, her eyes landing on Nishida Tsubomi, who was waving from a distance. Seeing this, she smiled faintly. They're here. They're here. From the other truck, Shizuka jumped down and began looking around. Among Lin's peerage, only Psycho and Shizuka knew how to drive. When Lin first found out, he was speechless. He immediately had them practice in the zombie world. Of course. If they could learn teleportation magic, that would be a different story. Nothing else, just transferring cursed children would be so much easier. Sister Psycho. Sister Shizuka. Nishida Tsubomi arrived with 13 more little girls. Psycho smiled gently. Go wait in the truck for now. You're the first ones here. The girls behind Tsubomi looked nervous and uneasy. They kept their heads low, avoiding eye contact with Psycho. One girl even tried to shrink herself into invisibility, praying no one would notice her. After some comforting from Tsubomi, they finally climbed onto the truck. Soon after, the second, third, and fourth waves arrived without issue. But just as the fifth wave approached, "Huh? What's going on?" Mariko, who was leading that group, exclaimed. Boom boom. A subtle tremor shook the ground beneath their feet. It felt like something was moving underground. And the next second, a massive beast erupted from the ground behind the group. AHH. One of the cursed children at the rear screamed and fell. She turned around, eyes wide in terror. What appeared was a centipede spider hybrid Gastria. Its face had no features, only a massive vertical mouth that filled the entire space, lined with 3 rows of jagged teeth. A poisonous mist seeped out from its abdomen. This is bad. On the truck, the cursed children who were already seated panicked at the sight. Their hearts sank. We're gonna die. What do we do? What do we do? As cursed children, the fear of death was deeply rooted in them. Clang. Just as despair settled in, Psycho's katana was unsheathed. She raised the blade and slashed in the direction of the Gastria. Whoosh! A white arc tore through the air, cutting forward at extreme speed. Before the Gastria could react, the slash struck its tough carapace. Shhhhk. With a loud thud, its upper body was sliced clean off and hit the ground. Every cursed child froze at the sight. So cool, that big sister's amazing. Someone on the truck whispered in awe. Mariko also stood stunned for a moment. Then she quickly shouted, "What are you doing? Move! Go!" The others snapped out of their stupor and rushed forward, helping the girl who had fallen. Mariko, who had inherited Gastria traits, knew. Unless its core was destroyed, a Gastria wouldn't die. She yelled out, "Sister Psycho! You have to destroy the core or it'll regenerate." Psycho narrowed her eyes. Though she had cut the creature in half, its lower body still twitched. From the severed part, dark tumors squirmed wildly, as if something was about to grow. Core? Psycho glanced around but saw nothing resembling a core. Well then. If she couldn't find it, she'd just slice it apart again. She swung her blade a few more times. The spider-like Gastria was chopped into pieces, its body clattering to the ground. Ha! The cursed children shivered in fear. So it was in the abdomen. After chopping the creature into a rotten mess, Psycho finally spotted its core. Without hesitation, she destroyed it. Then she calmly sheathed her blade and turned to the girls with a gentle smile. All right. It's over now. Silence filled the area. What a cool big sister, though, a bit scary. Lin's peerage harem group. Psycho Busujima, picture.jpg. Psycho Busujima, feels good killing a Gastria for the first time. It's tougher than taking down a zombie. Kazuma Jayaka Yuta, ugh so gross. Seitenchi, please be cautious. A Gastria won't fully die unless you destroy its core. She then shared some tips for killing Gastria in the group chat. Psycho quietly waited for the arrival of the other cursed children. No further incidents occurred during the process. Until the final batch of cursed children boarded the trucks. 2 military trucks started moving. Boom boom. Tokyo, Akayaka. The sound of engines echoed from the Lynn shelter. The cursed children inside the trucks looked at the newly constructed shelter with a mix of anxiety and unease in their eyes. Hey! Shizuka jumped down from the driver's seat, her ample figure swaying. With hands on her hips, she declared, "We've arrived safely." Upon seeing Saiko and Shizuka return, Mahiru and the others quickly gathered around them. Lynn looked at the 2 trucks full of cursed children and nodded with satisfaction. Now this is efficiency. As expected, the path of lowlies helping lowlies was the right move. Cursed children might be wary of adults, but they trusted others like them deeply. With their guidance, it became much easier to gain their trust. Yuako floated midair and exclaimed, "Wow! So many of them! A big sister who can float!" The cursed children gasped at the sight of Yuako's floating form, their eyes wide in amazement. Hee. Seeing their reactions, Yuako beamed with joy. It was totally worth switching to extreme ghost mode just to get this response. Next. Under the guidance of the first batch of cursed children like Nishida Tsubomi, 113 new arrivals stepped off the trucks in an orderly fashion. Tsubomi and the others stood in front of Lynn, looking up at him with teary eyes, hope shimmering within them. "You all did great." Lynn praised them without hesitation. Hee. After giving them each a rewarding head pat, Lynn instructed Shizuka and the others to lead the cursed children to bathe. Once they were cleaned and dressed in fresh clothes, Lynn began reincarnating them into devils one by one. 113. This is a massive undertaking. Lynn let out a sigh. But when he recalled his ultimate goal of 1 million, these 113 felt like nothing in comparison. Take off? Take off our clothes. The new cursed children gasped, their faces flushing with embarrassment. Although they were only around 10 years old, they clearly had some understanding. Still, trusting the ones who had brought them here, like Tsubomi, they managed to suppress their embarrassment and showed their backs. Then, they lined up to receive Lynn's reincarnation ritual. Will we really become devils? One of them asked timidly. But once the first transformation succeeded, all doubts vanished. They had truly become devils. The newly sprouted, well-defined demonic wings were undeniable proof. Midori Fuse quietly watched from the crowd, eyeing the devil-transformed cursed child with cautious curiosity. Will the Gastria virus disappear after becoming a devil? I hope everyone can be saved. Soon, it was her turn for the reincarnation ritual. She hugged herself tightly, back hunched, and her face hidden in her hands. A faint blush stained her cheeks as she avoided eye contact with Lynn. A wide-brimmed hat cast her face into deep shadow. When Lynn saw her, he felt a strange sense of familiarity. Fragments of memory flashed through his mind. Is she, that cat girl? After thinking for a moment, Lynn asked gently, "What's your name?" His voice made her body tremble. Her head lowered even more. "Me, Midori Fuse." Lynn's eyes lit up in realization. So it really was her. "Can I see your face under that hat?" Midori's body shook violently, and her breathing hitched. "It's happening." She lowered her head, her eyes widening with anxiety and fear. She had a pair of cat ears. Because of those ears, her own mother had abandoned her. Since then, she'd been alone. No one had accepted her. All because of these ears. Her pupils quivered, and her eyes dimmed. Am I going to be abandoned again? But... no. I can't keep hiding. If I want to stay, I have to show him. Even if it means getting rejected again. Midori's eyes began to warm with tears. Something was about to come out. Be strong. Her voice trembled. Can. She shakily raised her hand and placed it on the brim of her hat, slowly lifting it. The pair of silver cat ears, once flattened by the hat's pressure, sprang upright like springs. Revealing the ears, Midori bit her lip nervously, heart filled with dread and self-loathing. I'll probably have to part ways with everyone now. I should just give up. But, what choice do I have? These ears will just make people hate me. She started spiraling into self-destruction. No one will want me. But just as those thoughts consumed her, a large, warm hand gently rested on her head. She felt a soft rub against her right cat ear. Midori suddenly stiffened, her cheeks turning bright red. What was that? The sudden warmth yanked her out of her dark thoughts. Her silver-violet eyes trembled in confusion. So cute. Lynn's eyes sparkled as if he'd discovered a treasure. See you cute. Was he talking about me? Her mind went blank. Things weren't going the way she expected. Weren't they supposed to reject her? Midori. Can I call you that? Lynn's voice came from behind. Midori instinctively stood up straight, still clutching the hat tightly in front of her. Ah, yes. She was flustered, not knowing how to respond. Lynn kept petting her head. The sensation of being touched so gently made her heart flutter. Midori, come be my exclusive cat. Her eyes widened in pure disbelief. Exclusive cat. So bold. The other cursed children burst out in excitement. Midori-chan is so lucky to be chosen by Lord Lin. Me? Her face turned as red as an apple, and her mind short-circuited. Why? Midori whispered, voice trembling, my ears, they're clearly, they carried the Gastria virus. Aren't they adorable? At that moment, it felt like Midori had been struck by a bullet of emotion. No. This feels like a lie, but... Due to the feline Gastria virus, Midori Fuse had an exceptionally keen sense of smell. She could even predict fate through scent. So. Lin wasn't lying. Pa. Midori lowered her head, blankly staring at the ground as tears the size of beans dripped down. Being called, cute. She lightly bit her lower lip, trying to keep quiet, but the tears wouldn't stop. Seeing her trembling shoulders as she sobbed, Lin gently turned her around. If you want to cry, then cry all you want in my arms. Midori sniffled, and the tears burst forth again. She opened her arms and threw herself into Lin's embrace, bawling loudly. Lord Lin. Lin wrapped her in his arms, gently stroking her hair. She must have suffered so much. Whether it was Midori or the other cursed children. That's exactly why this twisted world had to be purged. Inside the shelter. Aside from Midori's sobs, there wasn't another sound. The other cursed children stared blankly, falling into silence. They were all abandoned souls. They could relate. Lord Lin. They engraved this name deep into their hearts, vowing to never forget. Because he had accepted not just Midori, but all of them. Time passed. Midori's crying gradually quieted down. Lord Lin, will you abandon me? She sniffed, her voice muffled as she buried herself deeper into his chest. Even though she'd already sensed the answer she wanted, she still felt anxious. She wanted to ask it directly. Hear it directly. Instead of answering, Lin asked gently, Midori, do you want to be my exclusive cat? The answer was obvious. Midori looked up with teary red eyes at Lin's warm smile. Then, she buried herself back into his embrace and nodded firmly. Midori wants to be Lin's exclusive cat. This time, her voice wasn't nervous, fearful, or timid. It was filled with determination. Then it's settled. Yes. Still nestled in Lin's arms, Midori remained there for quite a while until Yuako finally broke the silence. Master, when will you pamper me like that? A ghost's not allowed to be spoiled too? HNN. Midori's body shuddered. She suddenly remembered, they weren't alone. So embarrassing. It was all because things had gotten too quiet. She hurriedly raised her head and pulled away from Lin's arms. Only to be greeted by the teasing gazes of the surrounding cursed children, making her completely panic. Her face flushed bright red. Lin smiled, alright, let's continue with the reincarnation ceremony. Alright. The reincarnation ceremony. Suddenly, Midori froze. I forgot. HHNNN. She felt like steam might burst out of her head. Turning around stiffly, she exposed her back to Lin once again. As Lin placed the evil piece on her back, the cold sensation snapped her back to reality. If it was Lin, then being seen by him was okay. After all, she was already Lin's pet. But it's still so embarrassing. Once the evil piece fully merged into Midori's body, the reincarnation ceremony officially concluded. Ding! You've obtained peerage member Midori Fuse. Ding! Peerage member Midori Fuse has been reincarnated as a special devil. Ding! You've acquired a skill. Lin temporarily blocked out the system notifications and checked her blessing information. Midori Fuse. Level, low class devil. Race, devil. Master, Lin Valifor. Strength, I0. Agility, I0. Durability, I0. Magic, I0. Inherent skills. Gastria factor, cat. Cat claws, able to grow feline claws from fingertips. Scent divination, able to detect others' emotions and fate through smell. Enhanced agility growth speed. Cat devil. Soul eroding blue flame, releases blue demonic fire that inflicts corrosion status upon contact. Fate tracking scent, the scent of destiny grants initiative in battle. Devil transformation, sad cat mode. Dash. Among all the cursed children, the first special devil had been born. Gastria factor, cat originated from the Gastria virus itself. The divination aspect of scent added a mysterious edge to the ability. Lin skipped the rest and focused directly on the skill description for cat devil. Corrosion effects, and preemptive advantage in combat. Tisk tisk. These were all abilities with potential mechanics behind them. He didn't expect Midori to have such excellent potential. Both skill sets were usable. Especially the initiative bonus from fate tracking scent, that one seemed very promising. Lin smiled, Midori, you're a lucky cat. Flushed from the praise, Midori's cheeks reddened further. Lynn copied her blessing info and handed it to her after she put on her clothes. After witnessing the previous ceremonies, Midori already had some understanding of the blessing system. She looked down and scanned the information. Unsurprisingly, her gaze paused at the master column. From today onward, she was no longer a stray cat. She was a claimed one. A faint blush rose on her face as she moved her eyes down. She skipped over the I0 stats and focused on her skill section. Seeing Gastria Factor, cat, her expression grew complicated. It was the very thing that had brought her so much pain. But now, it had become her skill. Still, it was okay now. As a devil, the protozoan virus was no longer in her body. This was simply a skill retained by the blessing system. More importantly, the reason her cat ears hadn't disappeared might be because of this very ability. Good. Midori let out a small sigh of relief. The very thing that had caused her to be abandoned and bullied. Now, thanks to Lynn's affection, had become her happiness. So, her cat ears were necessary. She shifted her gaze to the final skill. Cat Devil. Her eyes sparkled a bit. They all seemed like powerful abilities. But for now, she wasn't sure what any of them could do for Lord Lin. She gripped the paper with her blessing info tightly. If only I could be of help to Master Lin. While she was deep in thought, Lin took out his phone and snapped a few pictures. Click. Midori looked up, puzzled. Her eyes held a hint of confusion. Click. Perfect capture. Lin opened line. Found Rias. Lin, picture cat confusion.jpg. Send. Rias. Lin, I have my own cat now too. Rias. Kuah Town. Private Kuah Academy. Old school building occult research club room. Rias sat on the soft leather sofa, staring at the message Lin had sent her. Curious, she tapped the photo and studied it carefully. It really is a cat. She spotted the cat ears on Midori Fuse's head, and the corners of her mouth lifted slightly. But where did Lin find her? What did he mean by my cat? Was she added to his peerage? A cat-type devil like Konako? Rias shook her head. She truly had no idea where Lin kept finding such high-quality peerage members. As the owner of a cat-type devil herself, she was very familiar with their traits. Especially that infamous older sister of Konako's, who'd made quite the name for herself. Even though she killed her master and became a rogue devil, her strength was undeniable. Resting her chin on her hand, Rias drifted into thought. Now it was a cat devil, before that an angel devil, and before that, an archivist devil. Tisk. Each one seemed like they came from powerful backgrounds. She silently glanced around the empty club room. Akeno was still experimenting with how to brew better black tea. Konako, meanwhile. Crunch, crunch. Grinding her teeth. Sigh. When would her occult research club ever fill up? Crunch. Rias glanced at Konako with a sly smile. Konako, come take a look at something interesting. Konako. She blinked, confused, and walked over while munching on a bag of potato chips. Just as she got close, Rias suddenly held her phone up to Konako's face. Konako froze for a second, then focused on the screen. Lin, picture, cat confusion.jpg. Lin, I have my own cat too. Konako instinctively tuned out her own master's messages. All she saw were Lin's. And with that, the devastating news hit her. Pa. Her eyes went blank, and the potato chips slipped from her hands. Senpai, you have your own cat? Feigning regret, Rias sighed, what a pity, Konako. Looks like Lin has his own kitty now. Have you fallen out of favor? Konako stood frozen for a long moment. Then, regaining her composure, she quietly bent down to pick up her chips. But as she stood back up, she bit her lip slightly. Bucko, Lin Senpai's peerage should be almost full by now, right? Rias blinked in confusion. Konako added flatly, why is it that after a whole year, your peerage still only has me and Akeno Senpai? Pfft. Rias's smile twitched. It felt like a direct hit. She opened her mouth to speak, but couldn't find a single retort. She slumped back onto the sofa in defeat, spiraling into silent depression. Watching from the side, Akeno squinted and smiled playfully. Era. For her to say that much in one go, it really wasn't like Konako. She was definitely getting anxious. After successfully landing a critical hit on her master, Konako returned to her seat. She popped another chip into her mouth, but it didn't taste like anything. Like chewing wax. Silently, she took out her phone and sent a message to Lin. Konako, senpai, are you free this weekend? Want to game? Staring at the screen, Konako felt her heart skip a beat. Why do I feel nervous? Ding. A message popped up. Konako instantly checked. Lin, no problem. Who? She let out a quiet sigh of relief. Black Bullet World. After replying to Konako, Lynn continued performing the reincarnation ceremony for the remaining cursed children. After some time, all 113 children had been successfully reincarnated. Once the equipment confirmed that the Gastria virus was completely gone, the children burst into tears of joy. The emotions they'd suppressed finally erupted all at once. Lynn didn't stop them. It was better for them to cry it out than bottle it up. After today, they'd be able to start a new life. Watching the cursed children excitedly flap their devil wings and soar through the air, Lynn smiled faintly. Midori Fuse held onto Lynn's index finger with her small hand, her eyes still a little red as she watched the scene. Everyone, they were all saved. But there were still so many cursed children out there, still suffering. Thinking of that, she gripped Lynn's finger even tighter. Feeling her hand tighten, Lynn gently patted her head with his other hand. Don't worry. Everything will be okay. Hearing those words, Midori calmed down. As if they carried some kind of magic. I'll do my best, Lord Lynn. Her eyes were filled with resolve. This was the duty of all cursed children. Lynn had accepted them, given them new power, and freed them from the agony of the Gastria virus. That alone was already an enormous kindness. The task of finding more cursed children, she would take it upon herself. After all, Lynn had given her stronger power. And her cheeks reddened slightly. She'd also received Lord Lynn's affection. Seeing her mood improve, Lynn shifted his focus back to himself. A new skill had been added to his panel, Cat Devil, Midori's unique ability. In the evil peace space, Midori's presence had joined those orbiting his demonic chess set. Apoptosis genome, incubating. More genomes were collected, and the growth continued. He still didn't know when it would finish. Or what conditions had to be met. As for his strength, his level was still at the peak of ultimate class devil. Even after reincarnating over 100 children, there was no major qualitative jump. But he could feel an increase in power. Likely hovering right at the boundary of the next breakthrough. This amount of growth from just 100 children was already ridiculous. And in this world, there were still millions waiting for him to pick them. Who? Lynn exhaled slowly, calming the heat surging in his heart. He couldn't rely solely on reincarnating cursed children. He needed to raise the quality of special devils too. He couldn't let Yuta and the others get too relaxed either. Evening. The cursed children's first dinner in the shelter. The shadows that had once clouded their expressions had long been washed away. Now, hope shone in their eyes. Master Lynn. Just then, Mahira whispered into Lynn's ear, the supplies delivered by the government are far below what the Seitenshi promised. Lynn's face remained calm. As if he'd expected it. Don't worry. I had Psycho collect supplies from the zombie world before the gate was built. For now, it's enough. But still. Lynn smirked slightly. Looks like it was time to give the Seitenshi a little nudge. Lynn's peerage harem group. Let's wait for Lynn to bring it up to her directly. Tokyo. Seitenshi stared at the message on her phone, face filled with shame. Even though she had made a grand promise. She couldn't even handle the distribution of supplies? Still as useless as ever. Truly disgraceful. Why? Why would she even cut corners on something as basic as humanitarian aid? She pursed her lips and gazed into the air in front of her, dazed and unable to snap out of it for a long while. The next day, Seitenshi issued a new order to allocate additional supplies to the shelter. But this time, instead of returning to her office after signing the order, she used her devil-enhanced hearing to eavesdrop on the officials below. Just like last time. If it hadn't been for her devil hearing, she never would have discovered that the person she trusted the most, Tendo Kikunoja, was so despicable behind the scenes. He had supported her in establishing the shelter for cursed children from the outer districts in the morning. Then secretly ordered explosives to be buried that same afternoon. Even now, the memory made her stomach churn. After a while, Seitenshi used her devil's physical abilities to quietly slip into the area where the supplies were being distributed. She perked up her ears and listened carefully. I'm telling you, it's just like last time. Right. Are those cursed brats even worth this much in supplies? Just a few words. And the Seitenshi felt as if she'd been punched in the gut. The big shots up top skim off the funds layer by layer. There's barely anything left to send down. Rather than let those monsters eat it, better to take it home and feed my dog. Haha, better feed a mutt than a cursed freak. Her expression turned vacant. Her pale hands clenched into fists. So that's it. From top to bottom, they're all rotten. Her eyes went cold. Without another word, she turned and quickly returned to her office. Standing before the large French windows, she stared out at the crowds parading below, her expression dazed. If things keep going like this, I won't even have the right to ask Mr. Lin to give humanity another chance. What should she do? Seitenshi closed her eyes tightly. And when she opened them again, her gaze burned with determination. These people. They're the true threat to humanity's survival. Whether it was Tendo Kikunojo or the two officials mocking the cursed children just now, they were obstacles, preventing her from showing Lynn the goodness of mankind. So, they had to be purged. Only by removing them could the better side of humanity re-emerge as the dominant force. Tokyo, Airport. Tendo Kikunojo had just flown back from Osaka. Despite his age, his posture was steady, and his steps were full of strength. His face was icy cold, and his eyes were darker than usual. He left for a business trip, only to lose control of his territory. No one could be in a good mood after that. Satomi Rentaro, who had been waiting, came forward to greet him. Rentaro. At the sight of his adopted son, his most promising successor Kikunojo's stern face eased a bit. The two walked and talked. How did the investigation go? Rentaro replied seriously, I've found a few leads. The last time a large amount of explosives was used in Tokyo was just a few days ago. I suspect a senior executive named Morimura. Morimura. Tendo Kikunojo paused. His expression didn't change, but waves of shock surged within him. Wasn't it himself who ordered Morimura to plant the explosives at the shelter site? Why did he bury them at his own house? Tendo Civil Security Corporation. Thanks to Rentaro's intel, Kisara was the first to learn the source of the explosives. That day, her breathing grew heavier, excitement flashing in her eyes. She couldn't help but recall Lynn's calm expression after hearing about the explosives. Was it him? It had to be him. She didn't expect that he could pull off something so cleanly. No matter how you looked at it, Tendo Kikunojo and the entire Tendo family were titans in Tokyo's political sphere. And yet he had the audacity to take them down in one move. Kisara was certain. She and Lynn would get along very well. Besides, her eyes narrowed. The shelter bombing was something Seitenshi had entrusted Lynn to investigate. Seitenshi must have guessed the truth. She frowned. With something this serious, why did Seitenshi barely respond? Just a condolence message and a superficial investigation? That's not enough. She sat silently for a moment, taking deep breaths. Then stood up, grabbed her sword, and left the Civil Security Corporation. Tendo Kisara was going to verify her hunch. Tokyo. Akayaka District. Shelter. The cursed children under Lynn's care had been mobilized. They spread throughout the outer districts surrounding Akayaka. After undergoing the reincarnation ceremony, they now possessed the power of low-class devils. So there wasn't much need to worry about their safety. Granted, against the regeneration of Gastria, even low-class devils couldn't inflict lasting damage. But escape was always an option. Still, Lynn hadn't sent them to fight. Their current task was simple, conduct a census and record the locations and numbers of hidden cursed children. Like yesterday, when there were only 113 to retrieve, 2 trucks were enough. But now that the operation had expanded, 2 trucks were far from sufficient. Encounters with Gastria during transit were also a major risk. So Lynn planned to have them record locations, then let Yuta use her devil tome to mark teleportation magic coordinates. That way, Lynn and Yuta could jump directly to each point and transport the children in batches. Of course, that would increase Yuta's workload. After briefing her through the group chat, Kashumajayaka Yuta, no problem. Leave it to me. Kashumajayaka Yuta, but... Kashumajayaka Yuta, Master, be sure to replenish my magic properly. Lynn chuckled at the message. Setting his phone down, he pondered for a moment. The regenerative ability of Gastria is definitely an issue. For people like Psycho, they could outpace the regeneration and target the core, destroying it directly for a clean kill. But the newly reincarnated low-class devils didn't have that level of power. So when Midori and the others were out scouting, if they ran into a Gastria, the only option was to flee. Even someone like Psycho, now a mid-class devil, would struggle to outdamage a high-grade Gastria's regeneration. Weapons, forged specifically for Gastria, are essential. Lynn narrowed his eyes. In the Black Bullet world, only the cursed children had innate power. Gastria, however, were excellent monster resources. Even better, they were conveniently ranked from Stage I to Stage V. Perfect for helping Psycho and the others grind EXP and level up to high-class devils. Even peak class wasn't out of reach. But without proper forged weapons for Gastria, it would impact Psycho's kill efficiency and their leveling speed. Unfortunately, Seitenshi is no help at all. Just as he was thinking of how to get his hands on such weapons, Yuako floated over, curled up in Lynn's lap, and gently sniffed his scent. Master, a black-haired JK beauty just arrived at the door. Chapter 80, It's the other way around inside the shelter. Kisara looked around the newly refurbished place with a slightly dazed expression. Didn't she come here just a few days ago? Why does it feel completely different? And her purple eyes shifted slightly, sweeping across the little girls running around busily. Are these all cursed children? Psycho nodded calmly. Yes. Kisara was genuinely surprised. Clean, neat, even smiling. Are these still cursed children? In her memory. Dirty, lifeless eyes, numbness, cowardice, etc. That was the typical state of most cursed children she'd seen. Even those in shelters. Because shelters were still built by humans. So, cursed children in shelters were often not much better off than those wandering outside. That group of people only used cursed children to reap policy benefits granted by DxD. Or rather, that policy might have been passed because someone was pulling the strings from behind the scenes. The shelters were likely created by those people as well. Because of that, she had never held any positive opinions of so-called shelters. Even when she came to see Lynn's shelter due to DxD's commission, she didn't think much of it and even scoffed internally. Just another guy looking to make money off the cursed children. But the explosion changed her view of Lynn. Maybe he's different? After all, he was someone capable of blowing up the Tendo family. But upon returning to the shelter again, she realized she had still underestimated Lynn. The cursed children here. Kisara's eyes shifted. Compared to the ones she had seen before, they were completely different. There was light in their eyes. They looked forward with hope and anticipation for the future. What happened to them? Or rather, how did someone he make this happen? It had only been a few days since the shelter was established. Kisara couldn't wrap her head around it. She was then brought to meet Lynn, still in a daze. Nice to see you again, Miss Tendo. Kisara snapped back to reality and looked at Lynn, her gaze more complicated than before. Just call me Kisara. Last time, she hadn't even bothered to look at him closely. After all, it was just a commissioned mission, Kisara hadn't been interested in getting to know him. But because of the recent Tendo family incident, she couldn't help but grow curious about him. Now, seeing the state of the shelter, that curiosity deepened even further. She gave him a closer look. Is he, handsomely unreal? There was also an air of nobility around him. Even nobler than her, a lady studying at an elite girls' academy. Then, Miss Kisara, what brings you here this time? Or did DxD commission you again? Lynn was slightly surprised by Kisara's sudden visit. After all, the two hadn't spoken since the previous commission. Kisara shook her head. This time, it's personal. She paused, glanced at Psycho in the room, looking like she had something to say. Don't worry, Psycho is one of mine. Just speak freely. All right. Kisara shrugged, then looked serious. The incident with the Tendo family, that was your doing, wasn't it? Her tone was firm, her eyes unwavering. To be precise, I arranged for someone to handle it. Lynn didn't bother denying it. Kisara was briefly stunned. You're just admitting it like that. My last name is Tendo. Aren't you afraid I'll report you? Kisara genuinely didn't get it. He just said it so casually. Wasn't he afraid of Tendo Kikunoja's retaliation? Would Miss Kisara really report me? Absolutely not. Kisara instantly raised her hand and made an X in front of herself, speaking firmly. Lynn simply shrugged, as if to say, see. Kisara. Okay. She muttered in a lower voice, why do I feel like you know me too well? Lynn smiled slightly, he couldn't exactly say, I've seen your anime. By the way, what's your relationship with DxD? Kisara's purple eyes gleamed with curiosity. Master and servant. Kisara's eyes went wide. So you're DxD's servant? She suddenly understood. No wonder Lynn could sneak in and plant such a massive explosive at the Tendo residence without them noticing. No wonder DxD had brushed off such a serious incident so casually. If it had all been orchestrated by DxD, then it made perfect sense. Kisara's eyes lit up as she asked excitedly. Could it be that DxD has finally seen through the filth of Tendo Kikunojo and is preparing to deal with that old dog? Huff huff. Kisara's voice grew intense, her breathing heavy, and she licked her lips in excitement. Her purple pupils burned with killing intent. Lynn looked at her, speechless. First off, you got one thing wrong. DxD is my servant. Kisara froze. Then rolled her eyes at him. Yeah, right. But thanks to that interruption, she'd calmed down a bit. Anyway. Kisara gave a big thumbs up. Well done. As long as you're targeting the Tendo family, you're a friend of Miss Kisara. If you need my help, just say the word. She folded her arms, brimming with confidence. Well. She figured she'd probably get targeted by Tendo Kikunoja for this anyway. Might as well get something out of it. Consider it a small act of revenge. Lynn stroked his chin. How about giving me a batch of forged weapons? Kisara froze. Her arms dropped, and she gave an awkward smile. Forged weapons are pretty expensive. Ahem, let me put it this way. Kisara rephrased with a straight face. As long as it's not about money, ask whatever you want. Then, want to join my peerage? Lynn made the invitation. Peerage. Kisara looked confused. Whoa. Master just invited her to the harem. Yuako suddenly popped out from the corner, entering observation mode with exaggerated excitement. Harem 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 harem. Kisara's eyes widened and she started flailing. Her face turned visibly red. Is he trying to take my body? Kisara felt completely thrown off. Wait. Kisara suddenly noticed Yuako's floating state and blurted out in disbelief, are you flying? To be continued.